Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you could put your phones on silent or vibrate. I'd like to call this meeting of your Pontiac City Council for Tuesday, September 17, 2024 to order at 6:03 p.m. We give the floor to Councilman Parker to introduce this evening's invocation.
Thank you, Brother President. Good evening, everyone. We pray that you've had a great day today, for this is the day that the Lord has made. I shall rejoice and be glad in it. This evening, we will have our invocation given to us by Pastor Emeritus Kathy Dessereau, also District 5 President.
Father in heaven, we thank you for the beauty of the day, for the wonderful weather, for the joys that you give to us each day. We tend to major on the minors. Sometimes we major on the majors, but we let out and forget all the wonderful things that we have around us. And so, Lord, we thank you for those wonderful things. We still thank you for freedoms. That even though we complain that we can't do this and we can't do that, we still can do a lot of things because you allow it. We ask, Lord, that as we go through this meeting tonight, that you would be in charge, that there would be kindness and love and wisdom used in all the decisions that are made, and we'll be careful to give you the glory and the thank you, for we ask it in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now, as a community, hold a moment of silence for those neighbors who have recently departed. I read their names now. Edward Branner, David Kreitz, D.L. Graham Sr., Angela Granberry, Stanley Harris, Richard Hotman, Larry King, Susan McNeary, Lois O'Neill, Richard Payne, Marie Russell, and over this weekend, Miss Alice Thompson, age 99. Please join us as a community for a moment of silence in remembering them and lifting their family up in our prayers. Thank you very much. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington. Present. Goodman. James.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
McGinnis.
Present.
Parker.
Here.
Rutherford.
Present.
Mr. President, you have quorum.
Quorum being established, could I please have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So move.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Parker and seconded by Councilwoman Jones to approve this evening's agenda. Any discussion? Amendments? Clarifications?
We're not removing the income tax discussion, correct? Or the resolution, right?
I have no motions to amend or remove anything.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle on adoption and approval of this evening's agenda.
Carrington.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The agenda is approved. We'll proceed accordingly. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Support. So moved.
It's moved by Councilman Jones, and is that a second from Councilman Parker? Okay. All right, here's what's included in tonight's consent agenda. The Facilities and Property Subcommittee meeting minutes from August 23rd, 2024. The Parks, Recreation, and Public Works Subcommittee meeting minutes from August 26th, 2024. The City Council meeting minutes from September 10th, 2024, including the closed session minutes. Resolution to authorize the city clerk to publish notice of the proposed omnibus budget amendments for fiscal year 2024-2025, so they can be before us in 2 weeks. Resolution to approve the Village of Bloomfield Stormwater Operation and Maintenance Agreement and a cross-drain agreement. Resolution to approve the honorary renaming of Seward Street in honor of Kayreen Green. Resolution acknowledging General Motors employees' volunteer cleanup of the city's historic Oak Hill Cemetery. And resolution acknowledging community volunteers for facilitating the annual Oak Hill Cemetery Walk. Hearing no objections or concerns, we'll proceed now on the roll call adoption of the items within the consent agenda. Clerk Doyle. Oh, Councilwoman James?
Could we remove item E from the consent agenda?
Absolutely. So Councilwoman James is flagging what's currently E under the consent agenda, the resolution to approve the Village of Bloomfield Stormwater Operation and Maintenance Agreement and a cross-drain agreement. We will make that the new number 5, and all resolutions will move down from there. So we're going to insert Public Works, which is not a category right now. Public Works, although it could in many ways fall under legal, planning, et cetera, but for the sake of the order, it will be the new number 5. Stormwater and cross-drain agreement. Okay, with that, the consent agenda now includes the 2 subcommittee meeting minutes, the council meeting minutes, the notice of the budget amendments, the honorary renaming of Seward Street, acknowledging GM employee volunteers that did the cleanup, and community volunteers that did the annual cemetery walk. That's what's included in the consent agenda. Hearing no further concerns or objections, roll call, Clerk Doyle, on adoption of the consent agenda and those included items.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford, Carrington.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda and those included items are approved. We're now at recognition of elected officials. Are there any current elected officials serving our community that wish to give an update on their positions? Hearing none, we are now at agenda address. Pro Tem Carrington, are there any requests tonight?
Yes, Dr. Deirdre Waterman.
On this evening's agenda, I want to address agenda items 7 through 11 approximately. You changed the numbering a little bit. But Council has taken the extraordinary and unusual steps of confronting the mayor by asking him publicly and putting in writing on the agenda certain questions you have about the financial status of the city. You've been doing this for months now in terms of asking questions, and he keeps ignoring you or giving you answers that really don't bear out to be true. Such as, an example, when we asked about what was the status of the Cypriot payments and this resolve to the retirees, a few months ago, when we asked him that, he said, well, we're waiting for the judge. Well, as it turned out, and the people from Cypriot came and said, no, you're not waiting for the judge. We're not even before the judge because we're still waiting for the mayor to do what he's supposed to do. So that's one example of the kind of nonsensical responses that you've been having. So I hope you will stick to your guns because the finances of the city are important. And my question or point to you is not just what the answers to the questions are, but also in the case of, for example, you're still wanting to know when we're going to finance director. There's another more serious question about this, and that is why is this administration having so much trouble retaining and keeping quality finance department heads, as well as other important positions in the city. So that is, I think, the more serious problem that you need to understand. I've been following the money and seeing what's been going on. We've gone from where I left, what I brought you with, what you started with, the $25 million surplus I left, plus all the $37.7 million. from the ARPA money that, we're kind of rushing to the deadline. I want to say more about that in a public comment, but for right now, I just want to talk about that being one of the issues. And the whole idea about the finance director, after looking, and I think the position's been vacant for, 8 or 9 months? It's even made the pages of the Oakham Press now. We're saying, what is going on in the city of Pontiac? And I finally hired somebody. You brought her here to the meeting. She was supposed to start, I guess, next week, and then out of the blue, she decided not to come. I guess she looked at the situation and said, hey, look, I've got my professional career. I'm not coming into that. So that's a more important question to answer, Council. I hope you are keeping your heads up, following the money. And, one of the things I'm very serious about is what's happening with the ARPA money and how much of it should be supporting our homeowners and our small businesses. And I'll talk about that more in public comment.
That does conclude your time.
Mr. Carlton Jones.
Good evening. As you guys know, golf season is coming to an end, unfortunately. So I'm able to get here a little earlier now because this is normally my league day. I want a couple items in here that I want to speak to. One is pertaining, both of them is pertaining to areas where we really think that the work that we do with the Talent Development Coalition, the city could use it. If we really understand what developing talent is, it could be very important towards us trying to find finance directors. I've looked at the positions that the city is looking for right now. There are several positions that we can help in finding and developing that talent. And we can develop that talent with people right here from Pontiac. So, Mayor, I reach out again to say we can be helpful for all those positions that's open for the city of Pontiac. I believe we can do some good work to help in that regard because I see that we continuously have a need to find people, and there's ways that we can develop that talent of people right here in Pontiac, even as much as finance directors. You may not think that there's somebody, but if we go through the right way in developing, we can be very helpful with that. And I want to offer that again, that we can offer that to the city of Pontiac. I also want to say the bridge work is one of the items on there. Engineering, architectural, we truly want to engage with this program that is housed right at AUK's office. It's an ACE mentoring program, and it's about developing young people into architects, engineers. We need people to be able to be mentors. We need people to be internships. And all of these architects and engineers that we hire, there's no reason why that we don't entice them, ask them to be internships and mentorships for our people here in Pontiac. And so I'll follow with that. But those items are on the agenda, and I really want us to be very serious about how we can develop talent right here in Pontiac. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Chuck Johnson. I don't see him. Ms. Darlene Clark. Number 11. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon or good evening, Council Administration. I'm here to talk about the CPRA. I noticed on your agenda that you normally put it as a last conversation more toward the end of council meeting. The request that a lot of the retirees are having that I communicate with wants to know, can you make this a beginning of a discussion so they won't have to sit up and wait to the very end to get news of what's going on with the CPRA and the Retirees Fund. With that said, that can help the retirees to grab on consciously what's really being said. This is a situation that's been going on, way too long, since 2012. And you're this close with the faith that they're losing within the city and doing what's supposed to be done. They should have the consideration just to put it on the front burner. But I did say 11, but I also wanted to talk about the Dwight. Is that okay, Mr. Carrington?
What was it?
That's number 2.
If it's on the agenda, you can.
I can, okay. I want to talk about the Dwight. The administration, the mayor can help me with this. The concern about that the residents does not want that. Mark, and I don't, the head of planning, he tends to speak more for the investor than he tends to hear the homeowners, which is really a concern of the citizens of Pontiac. The question that I have for the administration, the mayor, about 2 months ago, in selling the land, the 40 by 40 lots that you had, you said only thing that can be built on those homes was houses. Now you have an investor coming in here and he wants to build a parking lot on a lot that's direct on another street. If you open that avenue for one, you're opening that avenue for others.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. That concludes agenda address, President McGinnis.
Thank you, Pro Tem Carrington. We are at number 1 on this evening's agenda. Is there a motion for adoption of an ordinance to amend?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilwoman James. This is an adoption of an ordinance to amend Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac, amending Article 2, Section 2.103, zoning map, to change the zoning classifications for 2 specific parcels on the east side of Dwight Avenue between Liberty Street and West Huron Street, the address being 94 Dwight Street, from R2 two-family dwelling, the current zoning status, to R3 multiple family dwelling. This is the second reading. It was before us last week. There is a related but separate parcel that would be considered next. So we are looking at the presentation may cover both of them in different ways, but we will handle these decisions individually. With that, administration, you have the floor.
Thank you. This and the next agenda item pertain to what we think is a really exciting, positive redevelopment project. This has been a former apartment building that has sat vacant and derelict for many, many years in the heart of a neighborhood that has tremendous potential. And this will clear the way, if these 2 items are approved, this will clear the way to redevelop this project into multifamily housing, which it once was, but actually with, in many respects, nicer units, because each unit will have its own laundry unit, and as opposed to a shared laundry in the basement, which is the way the apartment building used to be arranged. But perhaps most importantly, not only will it bring new housing on board, and we need a lot more housing in the city, but it will also get rid of this blighted, derelict building that's been negatively affecting neighbors for many years. And with that, I'll allow Manager Yandrick to get into the details for this item and the next item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Good evening to the community of City of Pontiac. So this is the same presentation last week. I'm going to try to fly through this and just focus on a few key points. But if there's anything City Council would like me to elaborate on, I'd be happy to do so. So again, this is an application for a rezoning for 3 parcels at 94 and 104 Dwight, which is a regular rezoning. That is item number 1 on the agenda. And then 95 Mark, which is a conditional rezoning, and that's number 2 on the agenda. The request for both of these is to rezone from R2, which is for duplexes, to R3, which is multifamily. And as we've mentioned, Planning Commission actually split this rezoning into 2 ordinances, and I will get into why. So this is the hearing process. The Planning Commission public hearing was held on August 8th. The previous public hearing was held on May 1st, which had also included 176 Liberty Street. And what I mentioned last night, I just want to reiterate, we had a lot of public speakers that were supportive of the apartment complex at the May meeting. When it came to the August 8th meeting, we had 2 speakers that were against the project that lived on Mark Street. We had 2 total public speakers. So I just wanted to clarify, my role in this is to communicate what the standards are, what the analysis of the standards, and we do our best to try to communicate, but I'm just going off the minutes that there were really just 2 speakers at this August 8th public hearing. This is the location. Just to orient everyone, this is West Huron Street right here. This is the Micah 6 building, which is being redeveloped, and then these are the 3 subject properties. As I showed before, the traditional rezoning is right here. This is where the building is and some of the existing parking that's going to be restored. And then this green area to the right is for the conditional rezoning off of Mark Street. As you can see from these photos from 2021, this is a blighted building. It has been very difficult for an investor to come in and actually redevelop the building, and it's sat vacant for some time. And so there definitely is a lot of community interest that has been expressed to actually redevelop. And we, while we have not heard this in a public hearing, staff has heard this from a lot of community members. This is showing the 95 Mark Street, and this photo was taken in August, just showing what this lot looks like. And as you can envision, if a parking lot were to be approved and constructed here, cars would be entering the site, and then, you know, we have close by access to the building on Dwight Street. We mentioned some of the regulations. This is not a permitted, so one of the discussion items last week is this is a permitted use. It is not. And so we're currently going through code enforcement. But there are situations in this neighborhood that these shared parking lots exist. And so the city is going to take enforcement action. This is actually a vacant lot. There actually used to be a property on here. And I did not realize that until working with Jack McIntyre this week. This is an approved paved parking lot, and this is located on the adjacent street to the west for Micah 6, and it's located between apartment buildings, and there are a few instances that this occurs. So this is just a comparison with the 95 Mark Street looking to be redeveloped with what already exists within the neighborhood. Just an overview. This site, this house has been multifamily since 1928. Obviously, there was no zoning code in place like we have today for the parking regulations, and so the applicant's definitely looking for the adjacent property to meet our current zoning requirements or to best comply with them. And really, it's to renovate and reopen the apartment building to meet those requirements. This is an overview of the site provided by the applicant. We shared that this week. Dwight Street is up here. This is Liberty. And then Mark Street is down here looking at the houses. And then this is the property looking to be redeveloped. These are some renderings provided by the applicant of what this will look like with the windows being replaced and the site actually being developed for actual use. To clarify the proposal from the applicant, it is 31 units proposed, 23 two-bedroom units, 8 one-bedroom units. So there are 54 bedrooms requiring 59 parking spaces. During the site plan requirement, the applicant, with their proposal tonight and what they're proposing to rezone, they still need a waiver from Planning Commission or a variance from the ZBA on the number of parking spaces, and they're still asking for a 20 parking space reduction and the buffer yard requirement. If they do not get those from Planning Commission, they will have to comply before zoning would be approved for this site. So, all right. As part of the conditional rezoning on 95 Mark, they have offered that any and all parking spots on the property commonly known as 95 Mark shall be diagonal and shall face away from the adjacent street. So really what this has meant is it came actually from one of the first public meetings, and it may have been an info session. The neighbor did not want to see lights shining into their that did not want to see lights shining into their house. So this is a way that the cars that are on this lot and the lights that they would have on would be, again, focused on the principal multifamily building of the applicant tonight. I've shown this at many rezoning, but this is what would be permitted at R3 district. Again, multifamily is the most common site. There are some other uses that do have a permitted, that are permitted by right. And then there's a ton of special exceptions. I do have the list there, and I'd be happy to go through that anymore. So City Council should consider 10 standards of approval. I have that up here, just highlighting. There's some analysis of that within your staff report. And the structure would have to be demolished and rebuilt as a duplex to remain compliant with the zoning ordinance. And, you know, this is cost prohibited even to demolish, and it definitely is a challenge in staff's opinion. And while the R3 district does introduce some new uses, many of those require special exception permits, which really give Planning Commission control over future development of the site. The R3 zoning district was selected because it represents the least change necessary to permit multifamily residential, and the conditions offered by the applicant mitigate some of the off-site impacts for neighboring residents. Staff concludes the 3 parcels are necessary for the reasonable rate of return on the property to redevelop and have the necessary parking for this existing building. And as I showed earlier, the proposed use is similar to the existing framework of the neighborhood. So Planning Commission recommended, obviously, 2 ordinances. One was approval 6-0 of the traditional rezoning for 94 and 104 Dwight. And number 2, they recommended approval 5-1 of the conditional rezoning for 95 Mark with the conditions supplied by the applicant. And part of the reason for their split of this ordinance, as I mentioned last week, is if Planning Commission is able to approve those waivers at a site plan level, the applicant does not need to, they could develop within our standards, they could develop Mark Street as a single family, they could develop potentially as a duplex, but they could not develop it as part of the site. And if it does not get constructed, if it does not get approved according to this within 2 years, it would revert back to the previous rezoning. So this is really giving a protection mechanism to the city that if it is not used for parking, that it could revert back to the R2 if it's not developed. I want to say that some of those uses, such as multifamily, would not be permitted on a 50-foot lot. It does not meet the minimum standards, so there is also some protections in there, just in case in this interim period there was another use proposed with the R3. That could not happen just because of the size of the site unless the applicant got a variance. So with that, that is my staff report this evening. The applicant has returned again this week and is happy to entertain any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Deliberations on this second reading. Councilwoman James, you have the floor. Microphone.
I've got a couple of questions. The first is the picture that you showed of the Micah 6 parking lot that was approved. What basis was that approved on?
So I do not have the history within the city records. I have taken a look. These are adjacent to across the street from the Micah 6 property. I don't know the history and I don't know the zoning approvals, but they have been utilized as part of this project. I know they're owned by Micah 6. I can't confirm that they actually have occupancy for, to be able to park there, but we will work through that. But these are existing paved lots that exist that, as you can tell, have been there for some time.
But to clarify for her, the image you're showing right now, are you saying this is the applicable?
Correct.
So
this is owned by
Murphy?
Micah 6 across the street. So these are existing parking lots that exist within this neighborhood, between other residential properties.
But you're claiming that that site, that parcel is owned by the Micah 6 community?
That is correct.
And it's approved parking.
Yeah, and I believe it's actually on the plans that were approved. This is previous to this administration, but I believe that they were on there.
They have a surface parking lot adjacent to the Webster Community Center that was approved on Murphy Street.
This is Murphy Street.
So this is Murphy, a parcel north of Huron?
If I may, for just a second, I can point out on the zoning map where this is located.
Okay.
Okay. These lots, there's 2 of them, and I don't know the exact parcel, but one is here on Murphy, and I think there's another one up here that may either goes over 1 or 2 parcels, correct?
So you're not contending that these are across the street or near the Dwight?
No, it's just in the
Subject
neighborhood,
and
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman James, I'm sorry, that was helping clarify for me based on how I understood it at the Planning Commission.
Yeah, it's concerning to me that it's, when he said it's an approved lot, I just wondered what basis was that approved on. And then would you go back to the picture of the parking lot for the Dwight structure? This is something that I guess I misunderstood. Now, the vertical part of the lot, that is the second thing that so for the Dwight property itself, we would just be looking at that property right behind the building. And this vertical is the second vote that we need to have. So in order for them, if we approved the Dwight Street, is that with 31 parking spaces?
Approximately, correct.
And they need 59 to be able to meet, so would they be able to get a deviation just on the basis of that one parking lot?
So from Planning Commission, they would be able to. And that would
Microphone.
Sorry, thank you. So that has not occurred yet. Only Planning Commission during a site plan process can waive the parking waiver, or the ZBA during a variance process. Now, the applicant has the option with the city on this property, and it really gives them the ability for 8 additional spaces. These are 8 spaces that would not be parking on the adjacent streets. If they're able to achieve the waiver for 39, that would allow them to develop this entire property. If Planning Commission wanted to adopt a waiver for 31, then they would not need to develop. Planning Commission would likely not approve this parcel, but at that point, then 2 years would pass and then it would revert back to the previous zoning district.
You're saying that Planning Commission would not approve it with 31 spots?
That remains to be seen, because we need the rezoning to be approved before a site plan application can begin.
Okay, and my last question is, the homeowners or on those 2 opposite sides, are they do they approve this?
I do not believe I've specifically spoken with either of the neighbors for this property. If the applicant has, they can speak to that, but I do not believe that we had a public hearing notice process for both of these, and I have not spoken to either of them.
Order in the chambers.
Has the applicant spoken to them? Because that would, to me, would be very important to know. This is right next door to a parking lot, so we definitely should know whether those residents are in agreement for this project.
So I don't know. I know that we spoke to somebody on Liberty Street when that was an issue. There was some other people on Mark, but I don't know if they were directly next door or not. I really don't remember. But there was other people off of Mark Street that came to the hearing.
I'm done.
Okay. Council Pro Tem, followed by Councilman Parker.
No, I'll pass.
Okay, Councilman Parker, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. The entrance to this little, I guess this vertical parking spot, where is it at?
It's off of Mark Street, coming in from the front of that property, and it would be entrance only.
It's from the bottom of the picture?
Yeah.
And you did say you have not spoken to the 2 residences on each side?
I don't know if they were directly next door or not, but I have spoken to residents off of Mark.
But not those 2?
I don't know. I honestly don't remember if they were directly next door or not. I really don't, and I don't want to say if I'm not for sure.
Well, shouldn't you get, since it's next to their property, would that not have been more feasible to get their approval?
If I can clarify from the minutes, Tory McDodden, if I'm pronouncing that correct, did speak in opposition and lives adjacent. I'm not sure on which side. The address was not given, but lives adjacent to this parking lot.
Anything for you?
No, actually, the project itself, I think, is a good project. My concern is the parking lot that'll run between 2 homes. So that is an issue. I'm really hoping if this project is approved, that the Planning Commission would actually, whatever we need to do to approve that project and get them variances at that particular, on the one piece of property and not the second. Thank you.
Councilman Rutherford.
Good evening. Mark, if you can go to the mic, please. Thanks. What was the commission vote on this project?
The commission vote so there were 2 ordinances. The one for up here was 6-0. The one for down here was 5-1.
So before they came here, I just want to make sure they approved for both of them, basically, correct?
Correct, or
Okay.
recommended approval.
And what was the one that voted against it? What was the reason why they did it?
Part of it thought that it was too tight for a parking lot.
And so my follow-up will be very simply, without these 2 together, will they be short parking for the people that are going to be paying to live in that building?
That is a determination of the city, at the different levels for this rezoning, for Planning Commission, for the site plan. Every apartment complex has different amounts of vehicles. We require 1.1 spaces per bedroom, parking spaces per bedroom. There are some houses that there are a lot of people that don't have vehicles. The applicant's, looking at more market rate, has expressed in public comment previously that there's more market rate. So we expect to have at least a vehicle per unit. And so, there will be some parking on the street, but we want to make sure it's not a detriment to the neighbors that also live on here too. They may also want to utilize that street parking.
And my last one, just very quickly. Mark goes one way, correct? Mark Street goes one way?
Can you? Yes, Mark Street is one way. I think Liberty is or
all the
Dwight
way
is
through.
two. Yeah.
Right, and the only reason why I'm asking that is because if they don't have parking and you go one way and it's parking, there's already people that's living on Mark Street parking, that means it ain't gonna be enough parking spaces altogether. Would that be a fair assessment?
That would be a fair assessment.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And to help the council reacquaint themselves, this strip, that is the next decision that'll be made, but it's still in the larger concept. That strip is currently owned by the city of Pontiac, and this city council did approve a development agreement or, sort of a conditional sale. Would it be needed for this to make this overall development happen? Is my recollection correct on that, Mayor or Mr. Yandrick? Yes. Okay. Next on the speakers list, Mayor Grimley, you have the floor.
Well, I just wanted to ask, because part of it, as Manager Yandrick has mentioned, is about the legal requirements for parking. But there's another element here, which is about what the developer thinks is needed in terms of parking lot space to actually make these units appealing for folks. And I was wondering if he could speak to how important that additional strip of 8 or so parking spots is.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, it's very important for the development because of the number of units that we have. It just, project-wise, it makes sense. We're, and for the budget for this whole project to really come together. And we really try to, maximize it and just see if we can, add or subtract anything. And this was really the number that, with the amount of money it would cost to redevelop it, the return would make the most sense at this point. And I will say that the parking lot on Mark, we are going to have a 6-foot tall stone fence, just like it's required with all the, landscaping, buffer, everything. And the fact that it will be just an entrance only, I don't think it'll be as much of an eyesore or, a problem for the next door neighbors. Right now, it's just an open lot that's, it's not as nice as I think a nice clean parking lot would be with, like I said, a nice stone fence, lit up, and part of this development. I think it would definitely give us, and the surrounding area, it would look a lot better too.
All right. Mayor Grimel, anything further? No. Councilman Parker?
Just for my clarification, you said there would be a 6-foot stone fence on both sides, dividing both properties?
Yes.
Okay.
Further discussion? The motion before us is the parcel essentially north of the green. We're talking about that structure built in 1928 and the surrounding parking lot. Should that go from R2, which means duplex, to R3, which means multifamily? Obviously, for about 90 years, it had been multifamily. It had been sort of like a grandfathered zoning situation. So it needs to be addressed if it is going to have a new lease on life. I am strongly in support of this historic apartments being able to have a new lease on life. So is there any other discussion or clarification on the rezoning from R2 to R3 for the parcel that has the large former apartment building on it and the surrounding primary parking lot? Hearing no further discussion, speakers list is exhausted. Roll call, Clerk Doyle on adoption of an ordinance to amend the zoning for those parcels at 94 Dwight Street from R2 to R3.
James,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes?
Rutherford, Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
All right, that motion carries. That rezoning is approved. We're at number 2. Is there a motion
So
for
moved.
adoption of that zoning ordinance amendment? Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman James, so we can debate it now. This is amending Appendix B of the Municipal Code of the City of Pontiac, amending Article 2, Section 2.103 zoning map to change the zoning classifications for one specific parcel on the west side of Mark Avenue between Liberty Street and West Huron Street, subject to the agreed-upon conditions, 95 Mark Street, from R2, two-family dwelling, to R3, multiple-family dwelling, conditional rezoning. This is the second reading, so now we give the floor to the administration for more information.
The previous presentation really handled that. Again, there's one condition that the parking, the vehicles must be facing diagonal away from the homes, and this will really prevent the lights from shining on the adjacent properties on the west side of the street, but also the properties on the east side of Mark Street, or Mark Avenue, excuse me.
Okay, and to make sure we're and the community's aware, the conditional rezoning also triggers a time window.
Yep.
Meaning that if within 2 years something isn't substantially complete, you can give the explicit sort of threshold they have to cross, but that it reverts to the R2, which is essentially up to a duplex. It can be single family, but up to a duplex. Currently vacant land, currently owned by the City of Pontiac. It previously had a home on it. I can't say definitively if it was a single family or a duplex, but it did have a structure that's now vacant, was demolished at one point. So this is the question, would it be conditionally rezoned for that period of time for them to impact the work? It's worth also clarifying, because this came up during the Planning Commission meeting, that let's say the Planning Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals does grant that parking waiver or gives that variance and says, you know what? With the primary lot, and there's allowed to be street parking in that vicinity, that should be sufficient based on where they finally end up with the number of apartment units. Based on the formula, based on, market studies, say, that's what's going to work for that site when planning for that site. So even though this rezoning has been approved, that doesn't mandate or guarantee that the parking strip would have to happen, but this on the front end bakes that into the equation should all those variances or waivers not come into effect or not be pursued or approved. Is that a fair understanding of the lay of the land?
That is correct. So how this works is if this conditional rezoning is approved, there needs to be a building permit and construction has to be started on this lot, and really the area in green only, before, if it were approved tonight, it'd be August 17th of 2026.
September.
Thank you. I'm still thinking it's summer. It's September 17th of 2026. Once it gets to September 18th, it goes back to the R2 zoning if that building permit and construction has not started.
And I do want to clarify, there was larger turnout at the earlier gathering of the Planning Commission. You mentioned that there was only a handful that spoke in August. Those that turned out had varying different opinions. It wasn't that they were all uniformly in support of something. I just want to make that clear, and that's a fair point, that people had concerns. They want to know more. This has been an eyesore in their neighborhood for a very long time, so they want it to be addressed, but they want it to be addressed in a way that works for their neighborhood. So I just want to characterize the many voices, and I'm grateful for the residents that had their voices heard. Councilman James, followed by Councilman Parker.
The conditional rezoning, does that include that he's going to put a brick wall there with landscaping for those two homeowners?
That is required as part of our zoning ordinance, and it's actually between a 4 and a 6 foot wall. He has not offered a condition that it be 6 feet high. If he would like to amend it, I would ask our municipal, but we would need that actually officially in writing. So we have Nick Castro here from the Kelly firm in place of Miss McAtammy this week.
Congratulations to Miss McAtammy on her wedding.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. But I would say that that's not officially, a wall is required. To make it 6 feet would need to be in a conditional rezoning at this point. Obviously he can always offer it at the site plan level, but he's not legally obligated to do that. But a minimum 4 foot stone wall and the landscaping is required regardless per our ordinance. And that's really a discussion if you'd like to have with the applicant.
If you want to.
Sure. I prefer a 6 foot wall. I know if it's not mandatory, but I just think it would be better for the neighbors. So that's why I offered it having a 6 foot high wall.
But that's not part of the conditional agreement?
As of today, it is not. If City Council would like to, we can get that in place for next week. We need something in writing from the applicant, but, and I would ask our municipal attorney if you can come to the microphone if there's anything you want to do to facilitate that. Thank you.
Yes, so City Council cannot require that to be a condition. The applicant would have to, of their own volition, offer that, but we turn to the attorney now to offer procedurally when or how much time is needed to make that a codified part of the conditional rezoning request.
Good evening, Council. Pleasure to meet you all. For those I haven't met yet, as Councilman McGinnis mentioned, the Council cannot require any conditions of the applicant. They have to pro-offer them. But if the Council would like, if the applicant would like to include that in the conditional rezoning agreement, our office can make that change and have it before Council by next week. It would just be simply stating that, per the zoning ordinance that requires either a 4-foot or a 6-foot wall, that the applicant pro-offers the condition of building a 6-foot wall, like he said, to buffer out the neighbors, and it would, appease them. He imagines more than a 4-foot wall. So I would imagine we can get that to you in a week. Shouldn't be an issue. But at this time, it is not a part of the conditional agreement.
And we would want to see the applicants if he's willing to table it as well.
Okay.
To the applicant, would you wish to pursue that, and would you like this to be tabled 1 week to allow for that to meet the written timeline for this lot specifically? This does not impact the rezoning. You're able to decide, you are the applicant.
If it helps, but we've been going at this for so long that I would prefer to try to get everything done today, but I don't know if me saying it with, verbally, but, I was told we had to have a 4 or a 6. I preferred the 6. I think I do have it in writing in some of the emails, by the way. So I do, I've had it in writing for a few months now, if that does help.
All right, so there isn't a clear request or consent from the applicant to have that week delay to codify that as a condition he is also adding. We're going to keep going with the speakers list. Councilman Parker.
Thank you. My question is, pursuant to the wall going in, are you also willing to speak to the 2 residents and see where they are with it? Well, it's between 2 residents, so I'm just asking, have you, because before he hasn't spoke to them, I would at least.
I guess I don't, I feel like we had our chance to speak here together, and I did not see them. I've also been to community outreach as well. We've done a lot, that we can. Again, I don't even know what to say at that point, but yeah, I mean, we've been, this is, I think, our 3rd or 4th time, like I said, plus community outreach. We've been here sitting and waiting, doing our best to communicate with everyone and address all the concerns.
Councilman Parker,
I certainly appreciate the fact that you've done all you can, but the one thing you haven't done is speak to both of the residents themselves and see where they are, since that seems to be part of the holdup of whether you can build what you're trying to do on that lot between their 2 homes. So I would think you would at least, even though they may not have come to any of the meetings, that somebody would just knock on their door and say, we're planning on doing this. Do you mind?
No problem. If I need to, I will. I have no problem. Again, I don't have any problem doing that. It's just, I thought it would be addressed, at this point when they came. That's all I was saying.
Okay.
But of course, I don't have any problem taking care of that.
Councilwoman Rutherford.
How long have you guys been working on this project
Since 2020, August of 2020, or I'm sorry, July.
And how many times have you guys been before, Mr. Yandrick, if you can go to the mic, please? How many times has this particular project been before planning and zoning?
I'm only aware of it with this applicant in May, and then they went to Planning Commission with a revised application in August. I'm not aware, previous to my administration, if there were, I know there were previous applications here, but I believe those were different with different applicants. There was one about 4 or 5 years ago. Have you been here before?
We've been submitting documents ever since 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, ever since 2020, they've had us go from and we had to go from zoning, site plan. We've done, I can't even tell you. We did knock, 3 years ago for other neighbors, even behind us. We've had our blueprints lost. I feel like we've been given the runaround with the previous administration, and that's why it's been taking so long as well.
So there's a reason why I'm asking this. Since 2020, you guys have been, whether it was in the previous administration, you was there in 2020, right? Then you came here 2021, then you did it again 2023, now it's 2024, and you've reached out to, I don't know if the neighbors have changed since 2020, but that's 4 years. So it's been 4 years since y'all been trying to get this particular project done. I'm just trying to give a basis of how much the timeline that this has been happening. And so at some point, where is it to where we just do what's in the best interest of the community if you've been doing it for 4 years? I just wanted to know. So I just needed you to clarify. I knew.
Yes,
I just wanted you to clarify since 2020.
Yes.
Y'all been trying to do this project.
Yes. I've been waiting since 2020 just to get to this point.
That's
Yes.
it.
I think there was an informational section. Is that true, Mr. Yandrick? Was there also an informational session at the Planning Commission some months ago?
There might have been in the spring, and that's an informational session with Planning Commission, something typical that we have for development and redevelopment projects, just to give the applicants some feedback about the rezoning process. I don't have the specific date, but I believe that came forward as part
So that
of
would have been 3 times in the last year or 6 months at the Planning Commission. 4? And then it was before us when we made that decision about the potential sale.
And one of the challenges since I was here was making sure that they had sufficient parking. So they were working with Deborah at one point to get the option agreement for 95 Mark to be able to meet with the zoning, to meet the zoning requirements the best they could.
Further discussion? All right, speakers list is exhausted, so we will now have before us the question of adoption of an ordinance to amend it's the zoning map for one specific parcel on the west side of Mark Avenue between Liberty and West Huron, subject to the agreed upon conditions for 95 Mark Street from R2, two-family dwelling, to R3, multiple family dwelling. Again, this is a conditional rezoning. This is the second reading. Roll call, Clerk Doyle, on adoption of the motion.
Jones.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
No.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Carrington.
No.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
No.
4 yeas, 3 nays.
Is that a sufficient threshold for a rezoning?
Yes, for an
For
ordinance.
a simple majority. Okay. All right, so that motion carries. The conditional rezoning is approved, and we'll work to keep the community and the neighbors updated about developments with these specific parcels. All right, in a related matter, we're now at number 3 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the conditional rezoning agreement between the city and Manuel Hoya regarding 95 Mark, parcel 1430-476-023? We don't need to spend too much time laboring on it. It's the codifying of the conditional rezoning. So now that the conditional rezoning is approved, this is the accompanying. All right, so is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Jones. This approves the conditional rezoning agreement related to the 95 Mark parcel, specifically 14-30-476-023. Anything further to elaborate on?
Really, this allows the mayor to execute a contract that will be signed by the property owner and the mayor, and it will be recorded on the property. That helps to memorialize this document and that conditional rezoning, that the agreement that will stay with the property unless it reverts back in 2 years.
Okay. Any discussion? Councilman Parker. Microphone.
I have a question for the applicant has said that he was willing to do a conditional 6-foot wall.
Yeah.
And that's not in this agreement that we're about to vote on, correct?
That is correct.
So should we not delay this until that is in this agreement?
That would need to be done as part of the ordinance that was just passed by City Council. This agreement just is tied to that ordinance that was just passed, and that agreement is not in writing. I do not believe we're able to. And again, the attorney can back me up, but I don't believe we'd be able to add that. Now, with that said, definitely we can work with the applicant to ensure that takes place. But I believe that ordinance that just passed really did not include that 6 foot and needed to.
Thank you.
Okay.
Further discussion? Hearing nothing further, roll call Clerk Doyle on adoption of the resolution to approve the conditional rezoning agreement between the city and the applicant regarding 95 Mark.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
No?
Rutherford.
Yes.
Carrington,
No.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
No.
Jones.
Yes.
4 yeas, 3 nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We're at number 4 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt? Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
I am sorry, but I need to change my vote on, not this one on Mark Street, but the previous vote, because I thought we were voting for Mark Street.
Help me, which one?
So the first vote that I voted no on, I'm assuming that this was on Dwight Street.
I'll help you. So there are 3 items that we just voted on related to the broader development. The first is on the Dwight structure and parking lot.
Okay.
And there were 7 votes in favor.
Okay.
And that's the Dwight.
Okay.
And then there were 2 related to Mark. They're sort of like A and B. So,
Okay,
but number
I
2
didn't-
is about the zoning, conditional rezoning of that Mark sliver. And then the next one we just did is about
Okay.
the conditional rezoning agreement, the
Okay,
specific agreement.
I thought there were only 2 that we were voting on, so we actually voted on 3.
That's right.
Okay, no, I don't need to change it.
Okay, thank you for helping to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are next on the agenda, number 4, but Councilwoman Rutherford's about to go to a major function that's happening in our city. So before she does, I want to hand off, we were at the Michigan Municipal League annual conference this last week, and she was unable to attend, which saved the city money. But it meant that she wasn't able to be there in person for receiving this certificate from the Women's Elected Leadership Intensive. We previously, as a city council, adopted a resolution acknowledging that she had been one of a handful of elected leaders from around the state that was in that program. She's completed that program, and there was a ceremony acknowledging them in front of all the other council members and mayors in the state of Michigan. So just handing this off to her so she can hang it on her wall as she makes her way to the District 1 function. If you want to hand that down.
Thank you. Can I say something real quick?
I won't object. Go for it.
Thank you. This is really about becoming a better leader and learning how to work with people on both sides of the aisle. I want to thank council leadership for giving me the opportunity to do this class. I want to thank the administration for giving us the opportunity, for giving us funding to actually help improve ourselves each and every opportunity. It was a great class. It was intensive, and I learned a lot about myself, and I learned how to be more diplomatic dealing with Republicans or Democrats and also independents. So I want to just thank you all publicly. It was not easy to pass this class. There was 75 people, and only 45 of us actually finished. So that's the intensity of it, because great leaders have to learn from greater leaders so they can make a better statement in their community. So I want to again thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to do this. I'm about to go do this function. God bless and good night.
All right, thank you very much. We're at number 4 on the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution setting the public hearing? Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Council Pro Tem Carrington. This public hearing would be set on October 8th at our City Council meeting, 6 p.m., for the sale of the following city-owned lots: 25 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard South, parcel number 641427352024; East Wilson, 641433332034; South Sanford, 641428460012; Seward, 64143401050014; 232 East Wilson, 641433334009; Ditmar, 641905256016; North Tasmania, 641428403006; and 13 Walnut, 641432133005. We give the floor to the mayor and administration, but again, this sets the public hearing, and it'll come before us in, 3 weeks' time?
Correct.
Mayor.
Thank you. This is all part of our continuing efforts to convey city-owned parcels to private property owners who are going to develop them and put them back into productive use, especially for the purpose of housing. And with that, I'll allow our Economic Development Manager, Deborah Younger, to get into the details.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Again, this is not the actual public hearing, but in an effort to make sure that citizens are aware and informed, we're presenting the parcels tonight, and then, of course, we can have discussion at the public hearing October 8th. So the first parcel, this is, again, these are for side lots, selling it to the adjoining neighbor. And the first one is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and that's the lot in question in red. The second lot is East Wilson.
If you can go back to
Oh,
MLK,
sure.
what's that side street that it's intersecting with?
Easter, and I don't know.
No, that's the formal plat name of the neighborhood.
Okay.
So this looks like it's north of Auburn.
Yes.
Because I see Rosewood Place peeking out
Yes.
at the bottom right. So we're talking about just north of Auburn, so that first residential side street to the east.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The second one is East Wilson. That's a picture of the parcel as it exists now, and here it is located on the map. The second parcel is Sanford, third parcel is Sanford, South Sanford, and there's the location of it.
Can you help us in between what crossroads? Are you familiar offhand?
I'm not familiar offhand, I
Okay.
apologize.
We'd welcome that at the public
Oh,
hearing
yeah,
so
I
that
will
the
have that.
community is aware.
Sure. And the next one is Seward. It's a picture of the lot as it exists now. Here it is on the map. Wilson is the next lot. Here's the location of the lot. And Ditmar, how the lot exists now. Here's its location. And finally, North Tasmania. And then the final, we in the past presented a redevelopment for infill housings for North Creek Valley properties. They've decided that they need an additional lot to build the 4 houses that they're proposing. And this was, they have already come before council for 006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This would complete the block with lot parcel 05. And so now they would complete the block with this.
So that's a particular applicant or interested party for that final site. Are there multiple interested parties for the other sites, or is it the same interested party?
It's the same interested party. They just determined to get the right setbacks and to put driveways and other things in, it would be beneficial to have that lot as well.
Setting aside Walnut Street, I mean the Seward and the MLK.
Oh, no, those are all side lots. None of those are development interests. Those are the adjoining property owner who have expressed interest in buying those side lots.
Got it. I would request ahead of the public hearing or at the public hearing if there can be visuals that show where it is in relation to the streets, the sort of crossroads, just because parcel numbers sometimes are harder for community members to be able to figure out, and council members. So that way we're all looking at the same set of maps. This isn't going to be resolved tonight or even at this public hearing. I just really want to emphasize my concern long-term about how vacated alleyways intersect with some of these lots. I am hearing more and more from residents of the east side where there have been sort of alleys or right-of-ways or easements that were split up or parceled off in between people that were nearby. And when that was done somewhat wholesale, it really boxed in some residents that might have had sort of a townhome situation, and that alleyway was how they could access their backyard or other aspects of their property. And when it's sort of just divvied up, say, okay, we vacated the alleyway, it's off our books, it's off the city's books, but it creates a bigger nightmare for the residents and then ultimately the city, because it's ultimately going to come back to the city like, how is this going to work? How are the homes and the properties going to be able to interact with one another? So as we get closer to October 8th, I'm going to try and do some deep dive to find out if any of these lots are impacted. I know that there are some properties on Sanford are experiencing this now, where one neighbor got it, the other didn't, or each neighbor got a section, but one neighbor is sort of lording it over or boxing it in or blocking it off and really creating some landlocking headaches and nightmares. So I don't want to unintentionally set off any nightmares for residents by trying to do the right thing of giving a neighbor expanded land, giving them ownership. They can take it and make it flourish. It doesn't have to stay on the city's books. I just don't want to open up any Pandora's box for the person who wants to buy it and then the adjoining residents. I don't want to create those nightmares, so I just want to flag that.
Okay, and understood. And to that end, before we recommend any sale of lands, we now clear with utilities as well as DPW so that easements and right-of-ways are in fact not abridged and we're not selling those off. So I send every parcel to DPW for their clearance before I bring it here. But understand that there have been instances in the past, and we will make every effort to not bring those type of situations here.
Thank you. Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, President, I'm glad you brought that up. But I also want to commend you guys for working with Walnut Properties, and because I know your goal was to build more residential homes. And I think that's a great addition to those vacant lots. I'm glad President McGinnis brought the issue up of alleyways, because even in the 6, it's been an issue with alleyways. So just making sure that all neighbors still had access to those alleyways and be able to get to their properties is important. Thank you.
Understood and acknowledged.
Any further discussion? Looks like the properties here in this cluster, and more batches I'm sure to come, is that the expectation that your division hopes to have another batch in future months?
Yeah, we try to wait and group them in groups together, and particularly on the development lots, because we want to make sure that we have a legitimate project where there's some hope of actually developing the houses there. The side lots, not so much. It's just a neighbor buying the adjoining lot. But really for the development projects, it takes a little bit more time because we work with the applicant, we work with planning. We also work with their lenders to make sure that they have financing in place. It may not be all of the financing, but enough to proceed that, we have a level of comfort that the development will proceed.
Thank you. Further discussion? Again, this sets the public hearing. It'll be back before us October 8th for further deliberation, and we invite the community to kick the tires, find out more about these sites in question. If there's property that you believe the city of Pontiac owns, you can visit the Economic Development Division to find out more, to confirm that, and to express your interest. The fine public servant before you is the manager of that division, and so she can be your point of reference, her and her team, if you'd like to find out more and pursue potential acquisition of city-owned land in the city. All right, hearing no further discussion, speakers list exhausted, roll call. Clerk Doyle on the resolution setting that public hearing for October 8th at 6 p.m.
Parker?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
The motion carries. The resolution is approved. That public hearing will be part of that evening's council proceedings. We're at our new number 5. It came from the consent agenda. It's the resolution to approve the Village of Bloomfield stormwater operation and maintenance agreement and a cross-drain agreement. Is there a motion to approve so we can begin debate?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. The matter is now before us. Mayor and Administration, you have the floor.
Thank you. I want to turn it over to City Attorney Joanne Gurley to get into the details about why this is needed. But these sorts of agreements are quite common in terms of the intersection of stormwater sewer needs with private property. And with that, I'll turn it over to Attorney Gurley to explain the context in this particular development.
Good evening, council members. From the resolution that was in your packet, this is the Village of Bloomfield's application for a stormwater agreement. Engineering looked over this stormwater maintenance agreement, and this is in alignment with the revisions that was made to the ordinance, which was section 118-408 of the municipal code. So this property is located on Telegraph Road between Orchard Lake and Square Lake Roads. Part of the parcel sits within the city, and therefore we needed this stormwater long-term maintenance agreement to make sure that there is no runoff that would harm the city. So we worked with Bloomfield Village's owner. We had a number of conversations to make sure that any costs that could result from the maintenance agreement not being followed would be borne on the developer. There were conversations about whether those costs would be reasonable or actual. The city's position is that it would be actual, in the sense that if there's an emergency and we are in a situation where we have to get someone quickly out to remedy a situation, it may not be reasonable, but it's actual and we need to get it taken care of. So we've finally come to agreement. There are actual costs that are in this long-term stormwater agreement, and the developer is fine with that. So I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Discussion? Councilwoman James.
Yeah, my question is, looking at the document, it says that the city is indemnified, the agreement indemnifies the city from any claims arising out of the same pursuant to that section that you mentioned, 118.408. What I'm not clear on is when it comes to the cross-drain agreement, is that the same, does that meet the same criteria that the city is going to be indemnified from any, for that agreement as well?
Yes.
It does?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Further discussion?
And
Yes, ma'am.
and one last question. So who executes this? Is it the city of Pontiac or is it the other party?
Well, both. So the city has to execute, well, meaning, city council has to approve it, and the city executes it along with the developer, and then it ultimately is recorded at the county, because this runs with the land, meaning that whoever may take over this property will also have to abide by this agreement.
Okay, but is the developer going to have their own maintenance people, or is this going to go through a water resource? Who would be the maintenance parties?
Well, that's part of the agreement. So the owner and the developer have to come up with their own system. So there's a schedule of different maintenance that has to be done.
Right.
And so if the city finds that the maintenance has not been done properly or that it has not been done, the city can step in, hire whoever it needs to perform those maintenance checks that needs to happen, and then receive the costs from the owner, property owner.
Okay, but the property owner has the responsibility for the maintenance?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call. Clerk Doyle on adoption of the resolution regarding the Village of Bloomfield Stormwater and Cross-Drain Agreement.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
Motion carried. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the purchase of IP video surveillance system and additional cabling to improve the feed and communication of Pontiac's 50th District Court?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Goodman. I'll give the floor to the administration, and then when it comes to City Council, I'll give the floor first to Councilman Parker, who helms our Law in the Courts Subcommittee and has been advocating for upgrades to our district courthouse on many different fronts. Mayor Grimal, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is an important need of the 50th District Court. By way of background, a lot of infrastructure needs at the 50th District Court had been neglected for many, many years. One of those was HVAC system improvements, and we have made some important HVAC system improvements there. But in addition, they need some additional video surveillance cameras for purposes of court security. And they have a long-standing demand from attorneys there for better Wi-Fi. In fact, I don't think they have Wi-Fi at all currently. And so this contract will install both the wiring necessary for video cameras and for Wi-Fi, as well as the video cameras themselves. The Wi-Fi will be a separate contract that will be relatively small in amount, approximately $10,000 or so. But this will take care of the camera installation as well as laying the groundwork for Wi-Fi installation. With that, I'll turn it over to our IT specialist, and that is Cody McPhee.
Thank you for having me. The mayor covered it. We chose to try and combine the camera project and the wireless cabling into one job just due to the difficulty of cabling in that building. So we're having this camera company install an additional 15 cable drops, which will be used for the wireless around the building to help satisfy the needs of the courthouse. Because right now they currently do not have any wireless, and now visiting attorneys are having to use like hotspots and standing near windows just so they can actually get a signal when they're speaking with clients. So the camera system is going to be replacing a 15 or 16-year-old analog system, and this will be moving to an IP system which uses standard network cabling. So this company is going to be providing the full camera system and all required work for that and the cabling for the cameras.
Thank you. Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. I just want to say kudos because I know we're trying to take an old building and make it operate effectively and efficiently for those who use it. So thank you for anything that we can do to make sure that those who are using the building feel secure when they use the building, and certainly that they have access to what they need to be able to do their work that we're asking them to do effectively. So thank you.
Councilman Goodman.
Yeah, I really do want to say thank you to the IT team for working really hard on trying to get this done, because the Communications Operation Engagement Subcommittee has been working on trying to get the upgrades for the 50th District Court for, well, about 2.5 years now. Like trying to get them Wi-Fi, trying to get them updates, because I don't think people recognize that the stuff over there is so old that if we gave them the things that we got rid of when we refreshed City Hall, it would be a benefit to them. It would put them leagues ahead of where they are currently, and that's like a really big problem. Especially like Cody said, visiting attorneys are having to like use hotspots, and like there's so many crowded areas and having to go stand by a window to be able to take calls and represent people. And so I'm very happy to see that it's finally getting done. I truly hate that it's taken so unbelievably long, but again, that's no fault to you. I know we've been working very hard on that. So I want to say thank you. I'm very happy that it's finally getting done. And they're also being smart about it and like, measuring twice, cutting once, doing all the work at the same time, I believe. So I'm very happy to see that project from the beginning is now coming to a close.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, speakers list is exhausted. Roll call. Clerk Doyle on adoption of the resolution approving the purchase of IP video surveillance system and additional cabling to improve the feed and communication at Pontiac 50th District Court.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We are at the next, thank you very much. Have a great night. We are at the City Council resolutions portions of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution requesting written clarification from the mayor on whether the City of Pontiac owes any funds to the federal government's Internal Revenue Service, and if so, context and amount of that outstanding obligation?
Moved by Carrington.
Support.
It has been moved by Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman Goodman. So I'll go to the resolution and read it, and then we'll give the floor to the administration for update and context. Whereas the City of Pontiac has been without a permanent finance director for the past 7 months, and the operations of the city's finance department have been hindered without full personnel capacity and without consistent departmental leadership. And whereas this is not the first time there has been a prolonged finance department leadership vacuum during this current administration, and whereas City Council leadership has consistently and continually pushed and inquired for finance department leadership stability, clarity of administration contingency plans, and status updates on department director recruiting and hiring progress. And whereas City Council has considered and ultimately adopted multiple legislative actions to increase the administration's ability to recruit, attract, and hire a finance director with position eligibility requirement modifications, human resources recruitment firm retention approval, salary band updates, and even voted to confirm a new finance director that was slated to start on September 9th of this year, September 9th, 2024, but opted not to pursue employment with the city and withdrew her interest in the role. And whereas council leadership had learned on September 13th of 2024 that there was the possibility of the city of Pontiac having unresolved matters with the Internal Revenue Service, which had not been shared with the council by the city's administration. And whereas, considering the continued vacuum at the finance department and the financial stability of the city of Pontiac of great importance, it was determined that this alarming prospect needed to be swiftly elevated and resolved. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council expresses our continued alarm at the city administration's prolonged finance department leadership vacuum, which causes great concern about the overall operations of the city's finances. And further resolved, the City Council requests written clarification from the Mayor of Pontiac on whether the city owes any funds to the federal government's Internal Revenue Service, and if so, context and amount of any outstanding obligation. And further resolved, the City Council strongly urges the city administration to have stronger contingency plans in place to ensure the serious and important duties of the Finance Department can be fully functional should a future Finance Department director vacancy occur as well. So that's the motion before us. We give the floor to the mayor and administration to provide some initial clarity to the administration and the community.
Thank you. I think that the deputy mayor sent a pretty in-depth email this morning explaining this, but the crux of it is that this is not about a tax liability owed by the city. So I want to begin by stating that. This is about 1099 forms that the city sends out relating to contractors with the city. And there was a misunderstanding about which deadline applied. And so there was a misunderstanding about whether it was January deadline, January 31st of each year, or March 31st of each year. It was sent out, the 1099 forms were sent out before the March 31st deadline, but not before the January 31st deadline. And so the question is, will a city be hit with any penalties from the IRS for sending out 1099 forms regarding the tax liability owed by contractors to the city, not by the city itself? Is that an accurate summary?
Yes, Mayor, that is an accurate summary. To that, I will also add that good, better, and different. This is not the first year that we have sent them out beyond the January 31st deadline. This just happens to be the first year that the IRS has actually said, oh, you are turning these in late. So the fact that they have been turned in late multiple years was only reinforcement to that particular employee that they were in fact following the correct deadline.
Thank you for that update, as well as for the research review and response that you provided to council. Under which entity and operations within the city of Pontiac does that responsibility fall to? Would it be the city treasurer's office, the human resources office, the finance department itself? There's no wrong answer. I just want to get clarity on that. And as a related question, has there been any movement on filling the recent vacancy for the deputy city treasurer? Mayor.
Well, I thought you were going to ask about the finance director. I know that's a separate agenda item, and obviously it came as a real blow when someone who had been confirmed backed out. But I do want to just make sure council's aware that we have extended an offer to another finance director candidate who we think highly of, and we anticipate there's been some back and forth conversation, as is typical when an offer is extended to a candidate, but we anticipate having an answer in the next day or two.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. And then, Council President, to answer your other questions, that responsibility does fall under general finance. So that would be reporting to the finance director. And yes, there has been progress on bringing in a new deputy treasurer. There are applicants who the treasurer is now reviewing.
Okay. Well, thank you. We would hope that in your weekly updates to council, if you could capture any of the related developments when it comes to the deputy city treasurer vacancy, and then also the specific matter with reconciling with the Internal Revenue Service on this request that they are posing. Councilman Goodman?
When did the administration become aware of this situation in general, that we were, essentially, when did we receive information from the IRS that we possibly owed money in terms of penalty?
Deputy Mayor?
So I was first made aware of this while I was on vacation. I sent that information to the city attorney for review. Upon my return and looking at it, as I put in my email to you, the city does not currently owe the IRS anything. The IRS sent the city a notification of our late submittals and said there is a proposed penalty, and we had the opportunity to refute that penalty, which we are now in the process of doing.
So just for timeline, when were you on vacation?
Deputy Mayor.
The week of August 22nd. 26th, thank you.
And so, I have a bit of concern if that is when, the city found out, because I'm assuming that you passed them that information on immediately, that it took multiple weeks for us to be able to get that information, especially because city council is the fiduciary for the city. We are essentially the main finance officer for our operations. And so, my concern, I appreciate you working diligently on this to make sure that we hopefully don't have to pay that penalty, but that the administration, didn't pass that information along sooner to council. That is a very major problem to me.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. To Deputy Mayor, I thank you for what you're doing. Can you share us a timeline of when the information that is needed by the IRS is going to be submitted and when all that paperwork will be done?
So the rebuttal letter was sent to the IRS very quickly upon receipt and review. Unfortunately, the IRS moves at the pace that it moves, so we just do not know how long it will be before they respond to our request for a waiver.
Thank you.
So in the scheme of things, this is essentially a minor, exposure, minor financial concern, but still one that we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. As soon as word reached me on Friday that, there might be a matter that, and I was not aware of it prior to hearing it, it caused me grave concern because I can remember reading about in the darkest days of Pontiac's financial woes, then City Council President Art McClellan, a newspaper article sharing about how very adverse information they were receiving as the City Council, and it had not previously been shared with them in a timely way. So it was almost like this very difficult and challenging news about the financial exposure of the city, and then the City Council having a very limited time window to react, to protect and safeguard the finances. So that has been seared in my memory, even though I wasn't in the room that night, about him literally holding his head, hands to his head and leaving the rooms just exasperated at negative financial information. The hits just kept on coming. And I want to always, when possible, front end and not slow down that adverse news so that way we can meet it head on. I'm grateful that it wasn't a more dire situation for us taxpayers, but even if it's bad news, I'm not going to be Eveline from The Wiz. I'll take the bad news earlier so that way we can fix it earlier and not have a bigger looming crisis where we're right at the verge. And I hope that the administration can understand that on these weighty financial matters, we feel quite vexed in terms of the limited window in which we can address them. That includes positive resolutions, positive solutions, but we're making these decisions right at the D-Day, and that makes it for a very challenging environment so that way we can do right by the people that we're serving, the taxpayers and citizens of Pontiac. So I'm glad that in the scheme of things, this is a minor matter for us to address, and we'll keep engaging and tracking to make sure that it's satisfactorily resolved. Further discussion? All right. Hearing no further discussion, roll call Clerk Doyle on the resolution requesting written clarification from the mayor on whether City of Pontiac owes any funds to the federal government's Internal Revenue Service, and if so, the context and amount of that outstanding obligation. Roll call.
James.
We're voting on what, the resolution?
Yes.
No.
Jones.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
4 yeas, 1 nay.
That motion carries, and Councilman Goodman is out of the room at the moment, but we'll proceed. So that resolution carries. We're at the next City Council resolution. This is a resolution seeking a written update from the mayor on a status of agreements with engineering firms for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Bridge Reconstruction Project, and why, as of September 13th, 2024, they remain unexecuted and engineering work has yet to commence, despite council previously voting to approve those engineering firms. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Jones, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. The resolution reads, whereas the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Bridge has been closed since August 2022 by Pontiac Mayor Tim Greimel when engineering reports identified the serious structural failures of the bridge and that it was an immediate danger for both vehicles and pedestrians to further use the bridge. And whereas members of the Pontiac City Council and the Pontiac community are frustrated by the logistical challenges and transportation inconveniences posed by the long-term closure of this major thoroughfare at the closed bridge. And whereas the City of Pontiac has been blessed to receive recent state and federal appropriations that will cover the bulk of the massive costs associated with the engineering, demolition, and reconstruction of this bridge. And whereas the City Council previously voted to approve the engineering firms to complete the design engineering scope of work for this critical project at the July 2nd, 2024 City Council meeting. And whereas City Council leadership learned from sources that the agreements with those engineering firms have yet to be executed and design engineering work has yet to commence, yet that information updating us on these delays had not been shared with council leadership or the City Council by the city's administration. Now therefore be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council hereby formally requests from the Mayor of Pontiac a written update on the status of agreements with engineering firms for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Bridge and an explanation why they remain unexecuted and engineering has yet to commence despite council's previous affirmative vote to approve the engineering firms. And further resolved, the Pontiac City Council formally requests from the Mayor of Pontiac an updated timeline on the City of Pontiac demolition and reconstruction project for the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Bridge from present day to completion, and that the timeline be provided in writing and provided to all members of City Council. So that is the matter before us. We give the floor to the Mayor administration for background information.
I first learned about this a little over a week ago, and nobody was more frustrated than me to learn that this contract still hadn't been executed. When I learned about this, I brought it to our city attorney's attention last week. My understanding is that this will be taken care of and executed this week, and we need to get the show on the road with the design and engineering. Some of the delay was due to normal back and forth between the city and the engineering firm in terms of certain contract provisions, and that's to be expected. But some of this, as best as I can tell, is due to less than ideal coordination between different departments. Engineering was involved, purchasing was involved, legal was involved. And this is not the first time we've had some of these challenges. It's why I requested approval from City Council during the last budget cycle for a chief operating officer or similar position that could really get into the minutia on a daily basis of conducting the trains on time and making sure that departments are working appropriately together. But we had already started talking a couple weeks ago about a better process for, hey, when City Council approves a contract, what are the immediate next steps so we won't have this situation occur again? And we started talking about that even before I knew about this particular situation, because this is not acceptable.
Further discussion? Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, Attorney Gurley, so when will this actually be rectified?
Actually, we had a, sorry.
Just a projected time that we can get this done.
Actually, we had a conference call this morning with Fleiss and Vanderbrink regarding some issues. The major issue was, and council did make some recommendations and some strike-throughs with the original contract that came before you on July 2nd. Namely that the contract talked about construction, and it should have been design services only. So, of course, that put the contractor designer on notice in the sense that their professional insurance would not cover construction services because that's not what they do. So after talking with the parties this morning, including purchasing, which is going to update the contract to make sure that any references to construction is removed and replaced with design services. And then there were just a few other recommendations that Fleiss and Vanderbrink wanted included in the contract, which I had no issues with. So we expect that the changes to the contract should be completed no later than tomorrow. And then I can re-review to make sure that everything was updated as it should be. There was also a missing exhibit with that contract that is now included. We anticipate the mayor ultimately signing by Monday. So we expect that this contract will go back to Fleiss and Vanderbrink. They will approve, and then the mayor will be able to sign by Monday, September 23rd.
My follow-up.
Yes, sir.
Also, does this need to come back in front of the council, or since we already gave the mayor authority to enter into this agreement, it doesn't need to come back to council?
It does not need to come back before council. Nothing as far as the monetary amount has changed, but I did put in the memo that I emailed to each council member today that there was a reference to CDM Smith being a partner when in actuality they are a subcontractor. So once I see the totality of this contract, then I can, discern whether or not it changes the context. And if it does, then it would have to come back before council. If it does not, then it'll just be the mayor able to sign through the authority that you all gave him from the July 2nd resolution.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilman Goodman.
So I'm going to ask the same question I asked during the last bit. When did the administration find out that the contract had not been executed?
I said that in my introductory comments, but a little over a week ago. And I brought that up to City Attorney Gurley last week before this agenda went out.
And then to ask council president or leadership, when did you guys find out?
I heard late on Friday, not from the administration, but from an external source when I was at a conference.
And so that brings me to...
I did not receive any notification from the administration about this. And that's part of what's prompting this resolution. Council voted July 2nd, and the natural professional understanding is that it would be executed in a relatively realistic time window after that, it's been 2.5 months. So to me, it's a central question of project management. You know, who's on top of this? Because there are major projects, we respect and get that there are many people are pulled in a lot of different directions. There's too much workload on everybody. But my hope and expectation is that these big, major projects, that we've got big, major project management happening. And so the expectation is that the council, it doesn't have to be just to me, it could be sort of a full heads up, hey, you know, these major sort of check-ins on these big major events, because we do receive that courtesy and that heads up on different developments or obstacles, things that are slowing things down, but I don't hear them consistently. Or I feel as though there might be the hope to, if we wait a few days, maybe it'll be solved, and then we don't have to get in trouble or get criticized for it, so let's try and buy us some time. And that's that gap concern. I'm trying to proactively close that gap for the council and the community's benefit.
And I wanted to get to exactly that because I don't know how to mince words as someone who used to teach children, but like it's becoming a little bit more apparent that more and more often that like there is this level from the administration of, okay, we made a mistake or a mistake was made and something is happening that's not great, and we're going to try and buy time to see if we can fix it without telling council and hope that it resolves itself, or hopefully that we can resolve it before it becomes an issue that comes to their light. And that is a problem to me. Like, I get it. I get the part of human nature to not want to be called out, but if we are going to be partners, if we're going to do this together, if we're going to do our jobs correctly, when things pop up, we should be notified as much in your ability, especially when it comes to major projects such as the bridge in which every single person in the community has been talking about and needing to get done. Also with the IRS situation, there is, to me, no reason for which council is receiving information from outside sources about things that should be coming from the administration. I'm being a little bit less nice about it than the council president, but we need that communication. I will start getting vehemently angry about the gaps that are happening. Because again, I understand whether there's like a matter of business days because simply time happens. People have things on their plate. But if we're finding out about major delays in projects from outside sources, I am very concerned about what other information that I'm missing. And that's not even including just citywide projects, because there have been ones that have happened in my district personally that I did not find out about for a length of time. So like, I really want to call attention to the fact that I need, and I think council needs, the administration to be a lot more forthright and upcoming with information, especially when it comes to decisions that we've made.
Councilwoman James, you have the floor.
Yes, I feel to some extent that I have to take responsibility for part of this discussion because I chair the Parks, Recreation, and Public Works Subcommittee, and this issue did come up in our subcommittee meeting. It was reported out in writing. We received the engineering report from Shannon Filarecki, who's our engineering manager. And it says, Martin Luther King Bridge awaiting contract signatures, revisions sent by F&V team. So it was a part of their report that was done on August the 26th. And I apologize, I realize that this is an extremely sensitive and important issue, and it may be something that I should have reported to council leadership. But it was a part, and I have to say that it was a part of the Parks and Recreation and Public Works Subcommittee report meeting that took place on August the 26th. That's all I can say.
Further discussion? All right, the resolution before us is seeking, and it's worth pointing out that the other aspect of it is that I think the council definitely needs. Your point's well heard, Councilman James. The council still needs an updated timeline, because if this means, the timeline that was provided to us in writing that we passed a resolution to prompt, to get, once we got that, it obviously is based on now stale information that, the contract has not been executed, so it's going to have an impact, I imagine, on completion timeline, et cetera, when the design engineering will be done. I will say that when I wrote the resolution, I intentionally was broad by saying engineering firms, because I know that there was that subcontractor group or partnership group, and I didn't know if maybe they had a separate standalone agreement that falls in separately, so I wanted to not be hung out to dry because I said 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 1. So hence my trying to be deft with the words. But so another part of this resolution is us getting that written update on what the new timeline will be, contingent on when it gets adopted.
I'm also, though, concerned about when that concern came up, by members of council. Was that addressed to administration? Because you and Deputy President Pro Tem do meet with administration every week. So was that addressed with the administration?
No, because
before the resolution was written?
No, because the information reached us after that weekly check-in. And that's part of where the frustration stems. The opportunity is there to update us on major developments or delays. And if a few weeks go by or 2.5 months go by and we haven't gotten that heads up, it feels as though there's a disconnect there in terms of that project management or keeping us apprised of potentially concerning roadblocks. Hearing no further discussion, it's the resolution seeking written update from mayor on status of agreements with engineering firms for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Bridge reconstruction project, and why as of September 13, 2024, they remain unexecuted and engineering has yet to commence despite council previously voting to approve the engineering firms. With that, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
James.
No.
Jones.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Next is the resolution seeking a written update from the mayor on status of payment to firm for actuarial study and status for receipt of completed study following council's previous approval of payment to firm. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
Support.
Is there a second? So it's moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Goodman. I'll read the resolution. Whereas the ongoing legal and financial matters involving the City of Pontiac retired employees, various retirement systems, structuring, and benefit plans have spanned many years and has played out in multiple legal forums, and whereas City of Pontiac retired employees worked hard during their time of employment with the city and earned their retirement benefits, but have had to endure many years of disruption and uncertainty as they have awaited the outcome of these ongoing deliberations, and whereas the Pontiac City Council has firmly and clearly reiterated our position of strong support for the permanent reinstatement of the $400 monthly benefit stipend to all City of Pontiac retired employees, with necessary safeguards built in to ensure retirees' hard-earned pension benefits are never jeopardized, including through adoption of resolutions reflecting that position. And whereas the City Council has previously voted to authorize payment of the actuarial firm for the required actuarial study to accompany a council decision on a final update to the settlement agreement, but is not clear on whether that payment has been made by the administration or whether the completed study has been received by the City of Pontiac. And whereas the City Council has been laboring to ensure timely and favorable outcomes can be reached, prompting the question weekly to the administration on where matters stand, and the final update to the settlement agreement will come before us to render a verdict. And based on last week's City Council meeting discussions, we were expecting a vote and clarified answers by now. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council firmly and clearly reiterates our previously adopted position of strong support for the permanent reinstatement of the $400 monthly benefit stipend to all City of Pontiac retired employees, with necessary safeguards built in to ensure retirees' hard-earned pension benefits are never jeopardized. And further resolved, the City Council requests from the Mayor of Pontiac a written update on the status of payment to the firm of the necessary actuarial study and status for the City of Pontiac receiving that completed actuarial study And further resolved, the City Council requests an update from the Mayor of Pontiac on the anticipated timeline for when a final update to the settlement agreement will come before the City Council for a decision to be made by our legislative body. So that's the motion before us. We give the floor to the administration for further information.
I want to first just make sure for members of the public, every benefit that retirees negotiated for through collective bargaining agreements has been fully provided to the retirees for the past 2.5 years. So I just want people to know they're getting the pensions, they're getting the retiree health care. What this is about is an additional $400 per month beyond what they were promised when they were working here. So I just want to be clear about that. We are very eager to see this happen, nonetheless, because we do have an excess amount in our pension fund. We're very fortunate to be in that position. And the actuarial firm did receive payment last week. They did send the actuarial cost study last week. It's been reviewed by the city's attorneys. They have been involved in conversations with the actuarial firm to make sure that the actuarial cost study covers everything that it legally is required to cover under state law in order to allow for this enhancement to occur. An email from the city attorney went out to city council members today explaining that status, and we look forward to getting this wrapped up as soon as possible. I will say two other things. One is that we have now finalized the exhibit list with all of the additional retirees who will qualify for retiree health care. That was an enormous process because the city does not have good records from many years ago when most of these employees worked. We don't have any of these records digitally. They're all in paper files. Many of those paper files were very disorganized when we came in the door. So we've been working very closely with the VEBA and the VEBA's attorney. We've been working very closely with CIPRIA. We've been working very closely with the GERS Pension Fund and with the 50th District Court to try to piece together all of that information. I'm relieved to say that that has now been completed, and that has all been sent over to CIPRIA's attorneys along with the amended settlement agreement, and we look forward to hearing a response from CIPRIA. But there's another nuance that I was just made aware of on Friday, and that is that apparently the actuarial cost study has to be provided 7 days in advance to City Council before City Council votes on the settlement agreement. So as soon as this actuarial cost study is in whatever condition the city's attorneys believe is required, that will be immediately shared to City Council. And then 7 days after that, assuming that CIPRIA approves the amended settlement agreement, we can then allow for City Council to vote on that, reinstating the $400 monthly stipend.
Further discussion? Okay, the focus of the resolution's questions are ones that I verbally asked at last week's City Council meeting, and that's part of the reason why I took the action for councils, get it in writing, so that way it prompts this information coming out. This is why for months, council has been wanting to make sure the actuarial study is buttoned up, neat and tidy, put to bed, so it never causes any undue delay or draws out anything else. So I'm grateful that we know these legal quirks, but it's all the more reason why we've been asking for months to get that resolved so there can be no quirks or obstacles. Council made it very clear earlier this year where we stood in wanting to see resolution, and I know that the council is not the only entity here in this room that wants to see the resolution, but I must, on behalf of the council, express our disappointment that here we are September 17th, and yes, it was communicated to council from the council leadership to the administration that it would be on the agenda. If we don't have it to vote on, then there will be either a discussion and or a resolution expressing our desire to see it move forward. That is also true of the vacancy of the finance director. Council leadership communicated that clearly to the administration, so they're not being caught off guard or this isn't a gotcha moment, but I have to reflect where the legislative body is, and also to keep that fire lit, to keep these many serious priorities moving forward. The glare of the spotlight of these meetings is in part the only leverage the City Council has to prompt it to be fixed or prompt something to be done. So I'm not trying to be the bad guy, but I have to make sure that we as a legislative body are reflecting the will of the people and trying to ensure that we're prompting things that need to come to us for action. The updated settlement agreement ultimately has to be voted on by City Council, and there's an actuarial study component of it. And we are learning through information being shared with us today, tonight, in recent hours, about how there's still some more tidying up that needs to be done on the actuarial study front, too. That gives me great concern. So here I am, hoping that others can weigh in now if you've got further weighing in to be done. Councilman Goodman.
I mean, to put it simply, I, like the rest of council, want to stop honestly having this conversation. We want something to be done about it. Like, we want the people to have what they have been asking us for relentlessly since the beginning. And I want that day to come sooner rather than later.
Any further discussion? So again, council expected the final matter to be well already resolved from our portion, because there's already other hoops that have to go through the process with judges and federal courts and all that rigmarole, but we have still not gotten to where it needs to be to land the plane, and I'm sorry that that's what we're bearing witness here, but council will continue to try and keep the spotlight on these priorities so that way answers keep flowing to us and people keep doing the deep dives to what we need to do to fix it, solve it, complete it, and do right by our city's retirees. Any further discussion on the resolution? All right. Roll call, Clerk Doyle, on the resolution seeking written update from the mayor on status of payment to firm for actuarial study and status for receipt of the completed study following council's previous approval of payment to the firm.
Jones.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
No.
6 yeas, 1 nay.
All right, that motion carries. Was that number right?
No.
5 yeas, 1 nay. That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We're at discussions, and some of this has been addressed in the resolution component. Number 9, or at least the first discussion, still no City of Pontiac Finance Director, seeking clarity and status update from the mayor. The mayor has addressed that, but is there anything further you'd like to elaborate? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So we will go to public comment. Pro Tem Carrington, any requests?
Yes. Mr. Carlton Jones.
Welcome back home, right? Okay.
Turn your microphone on.
Okay. Yeah. You love your city, and you really, truly want to be very optimistic and very positive about things that's going on in your city. Now, I'll say this because I hear us hitting on it. And, President, I hear you hitting on it loud and clear. If you guys are meeting weekly with the mayor, there has to be some checks and balances for execution of what you approve. I see this sounds like there's no checks and balances for what you approve to make sure it's actually executed. That should be done everything. Everything that you all approve, there should be a process to say it's been executed. And if you don't get that execution, you know then it hasn't progressed. That should be a common practice. You don't know right now how many things you've approved and they're not executed. At least if there is a process, it didn't sound like it was. And I'm going to say this too, that issue about that parking issue with that building, we all think we need to get housing. There's a reason why there's a certain amount of parking to so many apartments. And if we keep on just saying, okay, let the developer get as much as he can get out of a building, that is a small piece of land. He's trying to put a whole lot of apartments for his benefits. That's going to come back and bite us because it's going to be real tight over there because it was 20 parking spaces short. That's only going to give them 8 more. They still going to be 12 parking spots short. So we have to, and whoever council district that is, whether those people come and really speak to that developer, you should go and talk to those neighbors. Those your constituents. That's in District 2. You should be out there talking to see, what do you think about this? I'm not trying to get on anybody, but that's the way our system is built. Your constituents are us, the residents. And if you vote on something without you taking some of your residents in your districts and concern about it when you see something in your district, that's you not doing what you should be doing for the residents in your district. I'm here to say we have some very big issues, and it's clear, and I think I heard somebody say it, the processing for all these major projects, it's clear we don't have the mechanism in place to handle them. But if we can't keep on putting our head in the ground, we're going to have more and more issues come up like we did tonight, and we're going to have the after effect. And I'm just wanting to say I'm willing to help in any way possible to correct it. I do have some background in management, and I'm willing to, especially with workforce development.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Mr. Tamika Ramsey. Mr. Claudia Phillip.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Greimel, Deputy Mayor Stevens. Happy to be here again. I was very happy last week when I thought we had received the city's final draft amendment to the settlement agreement, the Cypria and City of Pontiac settlement agreement. But after I had spoken and during discussion, the mayor said that he had received new information, and that was confirmed the next day in the afternoon when the city's attorneys contacted our attorneys and said there'll be a further delay. They're looking at new names to add to those eligible to receive VIBA benefits. So we've waited a week, and late this afternoon, our attorneys received contact from the city's attorneys that and added 50% more retirees to the list that they had provided last December and again in May. So I'm just telling you, this is, hopefully there are no other changes. We just got this very late this afternoon and have not had a chance to review it. But the Cypria board will be meeting with our attorneys as soon as possible to get this reviewed, and if there are any necessity to meet with the city, we hope the city will be available to meet with us in a timely manner. Let me see. Okay, so just so you know, I know that you're talking about unexpected delays, but just so you know what the process is on Cypria's point, the Cypria negotiators meet with the attorneys, the board meets to approve, and then the membership has to approve this before we can come to the city and say, yes, this is final. And the membership needs 7 days notice for a meeting. So just so you know what that timeline is. So thank you very much for your support. Hopefully we can get this wrapped up quickly, and hopefully there will be no new nuances or more to provide other obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Filler. Bishop Teresa Lee.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, our city council and our mayor, and to all the city of Pontiac. It's been some time, but I'd just like to come to give my thanks and appreciation for some events that happened this past summer. Forgive me for being so long. I was out the country, so I couldn't come to give, thank yous. We had his name is Brother Marcus. I can't think of his last name, but Brother Marcus and Troy, they came up this past summer with a program for the youth, and to be honest, it was very good, very attentive to 40 to 60 kids a day for a 6-week program. And I went up there, and these children, what I really love about these children, they didn't have an iPad. They wasn't in a corner with an iPad. They wasn't in a corner with a phone, but they were playing, something we used to do when we was growing up, playing. They was having fun. And I really appreciate the support from the city, Councilwoman Kathy James, and I don't know who all played a part of that, but it was very good. It was very helpful, and we just want to thank you because your supporting them supported us and even maintained everything that we had did with those young people. And I just want to say thank you so very much because everything was, much needed as well. We have our church in the park that was, this year, it was 80% rain. 80% rain. But I want you to know it was one of the best church in the parks that we ever had. I'm so drawn to children because I know what it is to have been a child. These children was out there playing in the rain. I didn't hear a parent say, "Get out the rain." I didn't hear nobody screaming and hollering. And I looked at a little girl that was supposed to be on a bouncer, and it was just wet. All their clothes was wet. And the children had fun. And it made me put down my umbrella. I'm walking around all in the rain, looking at the kids. It was fun. And we have so much going on. It's so much that we are confronted with that every now and then the Bible say that laughter is a medicine. And what I saw with those events was laughter. And I saw those children having fun. And Oakland County, all the different organization, man, I wish you know who you are, but I just want to thank you because you put a smile on those children's face. You put a smile on our face. New Birth International Church, we love you. We just thank God for you. And again, I just thank God when we come together to make things happen, we can see change. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Lee. Dr. Deirdre Waterman.
Council, you've passed some resolutions this evening asking for written explanations from the mayor's office. Will you add that to the agenda of an upcoming meeting when you get the written responses, or will we have to FOIA that as citizens to find that same information out? That's how you want to be reported to you. That was my question. But you have to be super sleuths to find out things that have been going wrong that you didn't know, and that's what this meeting has been about in several agenda items. That I see your dismay in that. My question to you is, and I've been following some of the money, what about the things that you still don't know about, that you haven't been told about, that may be problematic? That's what I'm just going to bring to your attention. One of those things, I'm just mentioning one of the things, is what's happening with the downtown development money. The $50 million for our downtown development and what's happening with the Phoenix Center and the amphitheater. I think unless I had come here and told you that they're getting ready to do the demolition of the Phoenix Center and late this fall, according to what Oakland County says, and that they're going to close down Orchard Lake in Auburn for 8 months. If I hadn't told you that and come here, it looks like a lot of you were surprised that you didn't know what that was going on. That hadn't been told you either, and there's no plans apparently in the foot to work that out, particularly with Martin Luther King's bridge still shut down and some of the other construction that's going on. So I've had to go to Oakland County Commission meetings to find out what's happening in Pontiac because we're not getting the information here. I would suggest you look into some of those things. They're waiting to see what we're going to do with the amphitheater. The amphitheater is in good shape, and the county said If we are going to have a plan to salvage that, we can save it and it can be reconstructed somewhere else. The citizens, the taxpayers, $21 million for that amphitheater. It's in good shape. It's in good shape. And so we should salvage that and not give that away. But what I mainly wanted to talk about was the youth recreation budget. There's a lot of confusion about the budget. You know, the mayor told you he had $44 million to do with the swimming pool. And I think the council was worried about spending that much money, so they said, okay, we're only going to spend $37 million. That's the plan you had. So that means that there is about $7 million or $6 million from the ARPA funds that you were going to put in when he was going to do the swimming pool that you won't need. But I'm always an advocate for making sure more hands goes in the hands of the citizens and small businesses. And I would like, since you don't need it for the swimming pool, I'm going to advocate that you put that in the hands of the taxpayers for the home repair programs that our Councilwoman Rutherford says there's only 8 homes that have been done. Not enough money to do all the homes for people who deserve to have that done for neighborhood building in our community.
Thank you. Pastor Kathy Dizeru and Darlene Clark on deck.
I overheard in the conversation tonight that we're going to put Wi-Fi at the courthouse. Hallelujah! I'm hoping that it will be broadband, because if we're going to put the money into putting Wi-Fi in, we need to at least have broadband. Several months ago, I asked some of the people here in town if we could get some new flag stands. And they have been donated. They're not here yet, but they are being donated along with a new American flag and a new state flag. And so we will set up a date for a formal presentation for those from the people who donated them. Parking spaces. I live in a building where there aren't enough parking spaces. That was not considered. And when I questioned it after moving in, was told, well, people of a certain age don't drive anymore. I haven't met that age group yet, because I know several people in their 90s who drive. This isn't 1810. We don't have our horse in the barn. The parking spaces are important, but they can't encroach. And so there are lots of problems with places where they should be. That was one of the problems, the legitimate problems, of when they built our building. And we spent a lot of time tonight talking about what we don't have between us and what we do have between us. It's pretty obvious there's a checks and balances problem. It doesn't take rocket science to figure that out. There's a communication issue that we've tried. It appears that you've tried really hard to close that gap. Communication is the basic problem of everything that's wrong in this town, that's been wrong for a long time. And so, please, I hear it all the time when we're talking to people here in town. Nobody talks to anybody. When they do, they don't do anything about it anyway. All they do is talk. They don't listen. We seem to have a group of people here who want to listen to each other. And if they don't, they need to start, because the public is very aware. And really, checks and balances, I've middle managed 2 international companies. I know how important checks and balances are. If things, I'm trying to be nice about how I say this, be careful what falls through the cracks. It could come back to bite you mightily.
Thank you, Ms. Desiree. Ms. Darlene Clark.
Good afternoon once again. There's so many things that's been said tonight that has been said previously. And Council, you are beginning to understand the memo that the people has been trying to get you to listen to. But listen to me when I say this to you once again. I've said this to you over 10 times. The administration, council, does not look out for you. She cannot look out for you and look out for the administration as well. You need to have legal representation. You have proved that tonight. You have proved that in your actions and everything that you have done in the last 6 months. You have had a change of heart on how you look at things, but you don't seem to know what directions to go in. You still show the public that you're very much confused in a lot of issues. Your foot should have been putting down on a lot of things, and questions should have been asked of this administration long before tonight. The GERS and the retirees have waited so long for results, and to get to this point, and for the administration to put it on your shoulders and tell you have to wait a little longer is an insult to the city. Now, with that being said, please take under consideration to get a legal representation to help direct you for that seat over there. And once again, also, Mark, the administration of planning, Mark, I don't know his last name, he has misled to you guys and he have lied to you guys. He said, him and the investors, that they did not speak to the homeowners. That is farthest from the truth. That is a lie. I will stand on that conviction. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. They have heard the people. The people said no. They didn't want it because of the noise, but yet you choose to not listen to what the people had to say. I asked you to look at the planning tapes. Whether you did or not, I cannot say that. But that's going to come back and bite you as well. Now, I would say this to our administration, to our mayor, with all due respect. Mark, your planning guy, is not working for the residents of Pontiac. He's working for the investors. He does not look out for the residents' concern and safety. He only look out for what the investors want. It's hard for me to believe that you're going to have a strip of land that can, like Mr. Jones said, can only hold maybe 4 or 5 cars, that you're going to open it up on Mark Street to go to Dwight Street to please an investor. But in the same token, you think a wall is going to stop? But will it stop the people from partying all night from that neighborhood on Mark Street when they live on Dwight Street? It will not. You open up can of worms for other investors to come in here and get the lots and do the same thing. Because what you're doing, you're rezoning Pontiac. And rezoning Pontiac, you're pushing the residents out. You have shown tonight your intent and agreeing about what Mark has said. Do not put your trust in him, and I say that as my job.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Point of information, Mr. President.
That concludes public comment.
Okay. Mayor Grimal.
I just want to address the comment that was just made, because I'm not going to allow a member of the public to call one of our employees a liar, suggesting that he didn't say that conversations were had with the neighbors, when he specifically stood at the podium tonight and said publicly that one of the neighbors spoke in opposition to this during the public hearings.
Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers. All right. Public comment has concluded. Ms. Ramsey, your name was called, but I think you had stepped out for a moment. Would you like to utilize the courtesy of claiming your time?
Thank you very much. First of all, the Pontiac Charter revision would like to get on the agenda because we know that there were some vague issues that are a part of the charter, and we would like to express our intention around that vagueness to help the council, the mayor, and the city attorney clear that up. I also just wanted to come because last week there were some things said. I just want to say I have never, ever been told by anybody from the mayor's side to come down here and blast anybody on the council side. If I come down here and speak, it's because of my personal experience that I have experienced. I come down here and I talk about business owners, but I'm really talking about our residents. I say business owners because I work with them in that capacity. But these people live here. They rent homes here. They bought homes here. I mean, they are Pontiac residents who are looking for the support of this council and this mayor to get some resources. I would never let anybody off the hook. I hold everybody accountable. And there are a lot of things, a lot of issues that business owners went through with that application for small business support. a lot of them are concerned that their information will become, their personal information will become leaked because of what happened to me. When I came, I learned that my taxes were not completed, and one of the employees said it. On Friday, on Tuesday, a council person was saying my personal business on this mic, which is not appropriate. And a lot of people understood that and know that, and they were nervous to hand over financial information because they don't know who here will have access to their things. I never am trying to sabotage anybody on the council. I do hold people accountable, and if I am organizing, which I have been, against some members of the council very publicly, I will continue to do so as long as I feel that they are coming for or being disrespectful or abusing their power. I really, really would like for the residents of this city to feel heard. Right now, they feel like it's a back and forth and that we're being left out. We're being missed, and businesses are closing while y'all up there trying to figure it out. And once again, this does not take any responsibility from the executive side, because that's where it happens. But when you have people on the legislative side constantly micromanaging and trying to manage the executive side when they want to, and then trying to back up when they don't. So I just wanted to come and clear that, because I didn't want anyone to think that I was lying, that I'm up here trying to sabotage anybody. I am advocating for residents who are also business owners. Thank you.
All right, we are now at discussions. The first, still no City of Pontiac Finance Director, seeking clarity and status update from the mayor. He provided previous answers when our resolution was being considered, but Mayor, did you want to elaborate anything further? Okay, any further discussion from council members? All right, and as the mayor shared, that they've got prospective candidates, so if that is on next week's city council agenda, then we won't have a discussion on it, but if that doesn't come forward, we'll continue to revisit the question. All right, next discussion. Still no final agreement before city council to vote on updating settlement with Cypria or for restoration of monthly stipend to city's retirees, seeking clarity and status update from the mayor. He spoke on previous agenda items with that. Mayor, in the public comment, Ms. Filler represented about how that 50% increase, that's new information to me. Is that fair that there was a large increase, or was it a handful? What's the scope of the change? And you've spoken to sort of the difficulty of pulling these sort of outdated threads together. Can you give the council and the community an update on the scope of what we're talking about?
Well, that's new information to me too. I believe it's just a handful of additions, less than 10 is my understanding. But I must confess that there's been so much, so many emails back and forth that I believe since the initial lists were sent to Cypria attorneys, that the newer lists only have about 10 or less or fewer additional names than what was sent to the Cypria attorneys last week.
Oh,
but I'll confirm that.
I think her comments were speaking about since the spring. It's like a 50% increase from what had previously been, last December or something like that.
I see. Well, I don't know or remember what had been provided last spring, so I can't even speak to that.
But so to help me break that down, the administration submitted an updated list, and then they did have a final handful of names that went additionally, a PS?
Yeah, so exhibit lists were sent on Tuesday to Cypria's attorneys, last Tuesday, a week ago. And then, as I shared with President Filler on Tuesday afternoon of last week, there were going to be some additions. Those additions have since been provided to Cypria's attorneys, and I believe those additions are less than 10 additional compared to what was sent last Tuesday.
I don't know that was conveyed last week. I may have missed it, but that's new information to me. Not the end of the world, it's just I wasn't familiar with that nuance, so thank you for breaking down that phasing. I think I saw a hand. Was it Councilman Parker?
I just want to ask a question. Since she's here, can we ask Ms. Fuller to address it? Can I surrender my time to her?
I will not object to that as long as no other colleagues do. Councilman Parker would like to yield the floor to President Filler if We just want to clarify your public comments when you were talking about the increase in the number of the exhibits, if you can help us understand it based on your vantage point.
Well, I don't want to give you exact numbers because
Sure.
I don't have them. I had a phone call very late this afternoon before I came here that told me there were 80-some retirees now, when the numbers that we had previously had in December and May were 50-some. When I spoke with Mayor Grimal last week, when he said there are a few additional, I thought he meant that was what it was. I don't know how many more from last week to this week, but I do understand that the number, and I don't have the exact numbers, we had 50-some people on the list in last December and last May. There were no changes until apparently last week and this week. So the changes that are made are are approximately 50% more. There are 80-some now when there were 50-some before. All this year, for a year, there have been 50-some provided to Cypria, and now there are 80-some that I've been told. Now, I don't have that in front of me, and I would be happy to come back and correct it if I'm wrong.
We respect that nuance.
Thank you.
Anything further? Councilman Parker, you had the floor. Councilwoman James, followed by Mayor Grimal.
Yes, I would like to get an explanation for why at the last minute we are adding people to that list, because to me, there has absolutely been enough time since that decision was made to include the 50th District Court employees that number should be definite and finite at this time. So how is it that we found an additional 40 or so people to add? Is that the absolute end of this? Because it should be. If we're trying to close this out, there should be absolutely no more. We ought to set that as a rule. There's no more names to be submitted. Because I really don't understand how these could have been added when we're right at the finish line here and trying to get these final pieces done. I don't understand how that happened. I would love to hear administration's explanation.
Next on the speakers list is Mayor Grimal.
Well, I want to just begin by talking and explaining what we're actually talking about here. We're talking about making sure that City of Pontiac retirees get retiree health care. We don't want to miss anybody. We want to make sure that everybody who worked hard for the city actually is covered for retiree health care through the VIVA. And the Cypria and the city agreed long ago on who those people should be. The settlement agreement that was entered into by the previous administration back in 2017 provided that anybody with 10 years or more of experience by December 22nd, 2011, who was retired on or before that date, would get VIVA coverage. But anybody who had 10 years by that date, but continued working past that date, would not get VIVA coverage. To me, and I think Cypria, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, where that settlement agreement effectively punished people who kept working for the city, even though they had the same number of years of service by a certain date as those who were covered by that agreement. That list has always been about 50 people, and we have consistently said that to Cypria. The other list of 50th District Court employees is less than 20 people, and that has barely changed at all since the spring. Maybe a couple more people are on that list, but certainly less than 5 people were added to that list since the spring. So I'm honestly at a loss as to what we're really talking about here, but all I can say is I absolutely want to make sure that we don't miss health care coverage for any retiree who had at least 10 years of service as of December 22nd, 2011, regardless of whether they stopped working before that date or continued working after that date.
Councilman James.
Well, I hope that I'm talking about the same thing. I understand exactly what you're saying. My question, though, is that difference in those individuals who worked the past that date and those who, stopped working on that, on or before that date. We knew what those numbers were. We've been talking about this since we took office 2.5 years ago.
No, we didn't.
Pardon?
No. Councilman James, you still have the floor if you want to finish your question.
So my question is, we didn't just discover that we wanted to include those individuals. And I'm just trying to understand, why did we have, in the last week, additional people added to that list? That's what I don't understand.
Mayor Graham.
We knew the categories of who we wanted to include, and Cypria and the city agreed on that a long time ago. But what we've been dealing with, which has been a paperwork nightmare, frankly, over the past several months, has been trying to make sure we know everybody who fits into these categories. Because the last thing we want, and by the way, normally how this works is that someone goes to the VEBA and they say, I meet these criteria, so I should be covered. Cypria wanted to make sure that everybody who fit each of these categories was delineated by name in the exhibits, which meant we'd better not miss anybody. We'd better make sure that we know exactly what the number is and we list everybody's name, because the last thing I want is for us to say we're covering people in certain categories, but oops, we missed somebody's name and so they're left out of retiree health care coverage. I don't think anybody wants that. But this has been a paperwork nightmare because none of the city's historic records for employees and retirees were digitized. So they were literally in jumbles in the ground floor, which most people think of as the basement, of this building when we came into office. And so we have been working for months trying to make sure we know all of the exact individuals who are entitled to coverage under these categories. And as a result, we did not know the exact number of people in each of these categories. We had rough estimates, but we did not know the exact number.
How comfortable are we now that we have the exact number?
Very comfortable. It's impossible to be certain in the world of record keeping that went on in the past at City Hall, which has been rectified now, but I am, 99% sure.
And so Cypria, just last comment, Cypria's guideline is that those people have to be named in the documentation or they would not be eligible. In other words, if next year the city determined that 2 additional people, they would still not be able to qualify because their names would have to be in this litigation.
That is Cypria's position, yes.
Okay.
But, so the extra handful of names that were added on since last Tuesday, did they all come from a specific bucket or category, or were it sort of a variety?
A couple of them were 50th District Court employees. I want to say 3, 4 at the very most. Most of them were in one of 2 categories. Well, actually, both categories, because there was some redundancy there. So I think actually the number that President Filler is referencing probably overstates things by at least 8 people, because the settlement agreement, the amended settlement agreement, has 2 different exhibits. One for those with separation agreements that were executed under emergency management that provided for retiree health care. The other is the category I've already mentioned, which is people who had 10 plus years of experience as of December 22nd, 2011, but were denied health care under the previous administration settlement agreement because they kept working for the city past that date. And
I've got to stop you, Mayor Greimel. I'm not sure when, but we've lost a council member, so
okay.
We presently don't have quorum. The council will stand at recess until council members Goodman and/or Jones return into the room. Well, we're at recess, so you are welcome to take the microphone. Yeah. The button at the bottom right turns it on. Oh, it's on, I'm sorry.
Oh,
feel free.
So my name is Delana Stevens, and I'm the founder and executive director of the House of Angels, which is a domestic violence organization that I have here in Pontiac. And what I do is, for immediate assistance, I put the people in a hotel room if they're in danger, because a lot of the shelters is full. So I just wanted to introduce myself to y'all, to let y'all know who I am, and that it's more than just the larger organizations out here doing the work for for the city of Pontiac.
And Ms. Stevens, if anyone want to get information or learn more about your organization, where should they go?
thehouseofangels.org.
Very good. Thank you for being here tonight. Quorum having been reestablished, we no longer stand at recess. We are still on the discussion regarding restoration of monthly stipend for city retirees and the final agreement. Any final thoughts, Mayor Grimal?
Well, I don't want to belabor this much longer. I'll just say that there are these two exhibits. It turns out that everybody, as best as we can determine, who had a separation agreement promising retiree health care also had at least 10 years as of December 22nd, 2011. So those two lists are actually redundant. We included both of them. And I think there were 8 people on that separation agreement list. And so the numbers that President Filler is referencing are probably 8 people more than the actual number, because we included people on both of those exhibits, even though there are redundancies.
Thank you. Councilman Parker, you have the floor.
Well, I just want to say maybe a portion of this, as I've understood and have been working with it, is I know we've also been working with some losses at the GERS department. I know we've lost we're on our 3rd director of the GERS at this point, because one died, one resigned, and so now we're trying to get another house. So that may be part of the reason why when you are looking for someone to double check some of the information, that may be a part of the problem within the longevity of this issue.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this topic? Hearing none, the next discussion topic is more of an FYI for the community. Pontiac City Hall will be closed this Friday afternoon, September 20th, from 12 o'clock noon through the weekend, and that's for DTE Energy to conduct electrical maintenance work. City Hall will reopen with regular hours that following Monday, September 23rd. Administration, anything further you'd like to highlight on that?
Well, and the deputy mayor may know more details than I do, but I want to be clear. I think this is for electrical work on a DTE-owned transformer, so it's not specific to City Hall property. It's work that needs to be performed by DTE, which will necessitate there not being electricity here at City Hall. So I just wanted to provide a broader context.
Okay, sounds good. Any further discussion on that topic? Hearing none, the final discussion, also an FYI for the community. There's a new museum that's opened in Pontiac. No, not the Transportation Museum, yet another museum. This is the Mythos Museum of Oddities and Curiosities. It's opened at 16 East Pike Street at the corner of Perry and Pike. So they have dinosaur bones and fossils and other curiosities and oddities. It's a collaboration in part by the Erebus Haunted Attraction family of companies that has, through the decades, acquired a lot of interesting curiosities. You can find out more at mythosmuseum.com. That's MYTHOS museum.com. Any further discussion on that? Mayor Grimal.
Well, I just wanted to say this place is pretty cool. I've been through there twice. It's actually really entertaining. Don't expect everything to be factual, but there are some factual things there, and then there are some mythical things there, I'll call them. But it's definitely worth checking out, and I think is entertaining for people of all ages, but especially young people.
And I always welcome that when Pontiac is further a destination on the map, the more, places of interest, cultural attractions, museums, galleries, art centers. It really helps add to the vitality of our community and makes us a destination for those that live here, live around here, and those traveling through. Further discussion? We'll keep you updated as we learn more, but want to make sure the community knows about that new museum in downtown Pontiac. All right, that concludes discussions. We are now at subcommittee reports. As I believe I've shared before, but subcommittee assignments run each year. We revisit them every January. Due to the departure and the vacancy of Councilman Nicholson's seat, that means his committee assignments have been vacated. So as we go through the subcommittees, I will update that a few minor changes have been made to accommodate our newest council member, Councilwoman Jones. So specifically, I had been chairing economic development, housing, and planning for the last 2.5 years. I will step back from that role. Councilwoman Jones, for the balance of this year, will handle that committee leadership, and I will fill the role of finance and personnel chair for the balance of this year, and then provide an opportunity for council members if at the beginning of the year they'd like to see new or revised assignments or the focus of committees. That's an opportunity as well. Councilwoman Jones will also take Councilman Nicholson's seat on the Law and the Courts Subcommittee that Councilman Parker is interested in continuing to lead. So with that, this is our once-a-month verbal update on what the subcommittees have been delving into. Communications, engagement, and operations. Chair Goodman.
Yeah, so we did not meet this last month because our meeting is the last Friday of the month, and last Friday in August fell on Labor Day weekend. But as you could hear, some of the updates that are happening are obviously the refresh over at the 50th District Court, the much-needed Wi-Fi, and things like that. Also, you know, we have the arts crawl and the multiple music in the parks that happened that people were able to come out to and participate in. And obviously, we have the community newsletter coming up soon for the quarter in the next, I want to say, a couple months. So that the work for that is beginning now. But we should have more updates next month when we have a meeting.
Thank you. The newly minted chair of Economic Development, Housing, and Planning, Chairwoman Jones.
Thank you. So this month at our subcommittee meeting, we did receive an update on the city's master plan rewrite process, as well as a review for the code enforcement numbers of the year and operational needs. Excuse me. In addition to that, we did hear the status of the city's small business grant program and the deadline extension. So there were some updates regarding that. We considered multiple ideas for future ordinance changes on rental tenant protections. We got pending court matter updates for noncompliance properties or properties with noncompliance. Reviewed Historic District Commission, upcoming topics, future zoning and amendment items. And just to provide an update to the community, the next subcommittee meeting will be on October 7th at 9 a.m.
Thank you very much. Facilities and Property, that is chaired by Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford. The City Council in the last few weeks had made a major decision in terms of the green light for the facility design and engineering way forward for the Youth Recreation Center. Another major matter that the city and that will come to the City Council that council members continue to receive updates and that this subcommittee has been looking at is next steps for Department of Public Works operations. Right now, the city leases a facility that is small, inadequate, and has a limited window of remaining time that the city can use it. So the city has to have something more viable so that way the public works operations can continue but also can improve, that the facilities can be stronger. So we'll look forward to further deliberation and options that when the time comes we'll bring for full council consideration. All right, next subcommittee is Finance and Personnel. As you had heard, I will be chairing that for the balance of the year to make sure we're handling these many weighty matters. Subcommittee was scheduled for last week. One council person was able to make it, but that does not constitute a subcommittee. We need to have 2 or more there. But so information was able to be received from the administration. Those reports have been shared out with council members. And now that we have a newly reconstituted Finance and Personnel Subcommittee, I'll get with the members to see how we might be able to have a meeting in the interim. But our next regularly scheduled meeting is on Thursday, October 10th at 2:00 p.m. So I'll review that with subcommittee members to see what options there are, and we'll announce that out at our upcoming regular city council meetings. But a quick overview for the finance and personnel functions. You heard tonight that we're obviously concerned about the finance director vacancy. More broadly, we want to make sure that the finance department has personnel stability. More minor, but we'll keep tracking the IRS matter to be resolved. A really big matter is that each year the city must have an annual audit conducted, an auditing of our finances that's required by the state of Michigan. And there are certain timelines based on the reports that council has received in the last few days. We are concerned that delays may arise, and we want to make sure that we can do everything from our legislative side to support the administration to land those deadlines. But some of the non-compliant or out of formula elements of the city's finances that might slow down the audit schedule is bank reconciliations need to be done more timely, and that's consolidated, income tax, money market, and courts, including money market. Looks like it's as far back as November of last year, so the Finance Committee will be looking for updates on that. Monthly reconciliation of current assets and liabilities. The GERS, police and fire pension audit reports, you may remember in past years that's held up the timely submission of the audits of getting that from those external, separate, independent entities. Similarly, a VIBA audit report, and there's grant information for a single audit that is also needed. So that's all within the broader umbrella of trying to make sure that the city's fulfilling its audit duties. The City Council communicated very early on our eagerness to have the auditing firm and their scope be identified very early, so that way there's no delay, but we're going to need to drill down to figure out where things truly stand. More broadly, we need to know for the financing of our different facility needs, Youth Recreation Center, and for Public Works or other municipal operations, will municipal bonds be utilized? If so, how much? What's the timeline of that? We've heard regular updates on American Rescue Plan obligation, and so that subcommittee wants to make sure that continues forth. You heard tonight the retiree matters. That has big implications for the city's finances and our personnel. But there's also some matters that delve into economic development regarding tax increment financing authority and brownfield redevelopment authority and other tax financing matters that we want to get a sense of where it stands in the city and what might be coming down the line. 2 final points. There are many grants that the city's been able to identify. The administration has been very successful in expanded grant funding. What we at the council want to make sure is that all those deadlines to finish the work or get those projects done, those are all hitting their marks, so that way the funding doesn't have to be not fully benefiting the people of Pontiac. That'll be a focus of the Finance Committee in the coming months. Finally, a report on the numbers. So the summer property taxes were due the end of August, and so now that August numbers are in, we are in a very healthy cash position. All 96% of the summer taxes have been collected, and none of the August bills have been paid out. So we are sitting at $166,947,105. That's the current assets, the total cash and investments. The cash and investments of the city is almost $167 million right now, and that's an increase of over $38 million from last month. So the main factor is all that property tax collection that's happened, and not much of the bills that need to be paid for August have gone out. Each month, the City Council, when we receive those regular reports, are looking at that bottom line. How are we doing? What's our cash flow and our cash position? It's very important. So the citizens and taxpayers of Pontiac can feel very good about where the current cash position and liquidity of the city is, where our cash and investments are almost $167 million. We'll keep updating the community and the full council, on that information. And next up is the Law and the Court Subcommittee. Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. The Law and Courts Subcommittee was supposed to meet Monday, but we will be unable to do that due to the State of the City address. And so we're planning on trying to get everybody together on October 7th at 4 p.m. But that's pursuant to all of our invited guests are able to attend. That is my report for this month. Thank you.
All right. Parks, Recreation, and Public Works, Chairwoman James.
Okay, we started our meeting with the Public Works report. I won't go over the Martin Luther King Bridge because we already talked about it, but I would like to say that Shannon Filarecki, our engineering manager, did say that the survey work has been completed for the bridge. Apparently there is engineering work being done, so the survey work, she says, has been completed, as well as the geotechnical, whatever that is. But she says that once the contracts are signed and they hold their kickoff meeting, that they would be able to, there would be nothing preventing them from, jumping right in with the work because all of the pre-work has been completed. The CDBG Community Development Block Grant, the sidewalk grant, they were still waiting signatures, but we do know that those signatures or that contract has been executed and that work has begun in District 4. Gulf Drive is expected to fully reopen within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Bagley Street is scheduled to be on track to be completed by the end of November. Martin Luther King is scheduled to begin resurfacing August the 26th, 2024. Resurfacing may not be completed this fall and may possibly carry over into spring of 2025. The design engineering is underway for Auburn Road, which bids posted this winter and construction in the spring of 2025. The Auburn Road, the proposed changes would configure that highway from a 2-lane each way to a 1-lane each way and a turning lane. So that is the proposed, the new proposal for Auburn Road. The agenda, we continued with the city polls throughout the city and all of our 7 districts. We have light poles that have been either hit by cars or they're just totally down. And the city is putting yellow containers on the top of those broken poles. And wherever you see a container placed over the pole, it means that they have identified that pole for a replacement. So if you have broken light poles in your area and you don't see a container over it, please call your council person to get that pole registered so that they can get the replacements ordered. Grants and philanthropy, the Sparks grant has been approved, and they're working toward putting together the plan for the demolition of Ewalt Center. Priority gave an update on the waste, no current residential complaints. And finally, or lastly, the Parks Director says that the department has 5 job openings. The grass for the mini and neighborhood parks are currently being done by the DPW employees on the weekends. We also asked the Parks Department for a breakdown of the budget for the Bowen and the Ruth Peterson Center. What was submitted to us did not really meet those ends. They say that they do not separate those 2 groups out, but there's still some questions around the monies that are being spent per center. I think that, speed humps. There was a meeting held on 8/29. The council and administration will have to agree on what budget the $600,000 funds that have been allocated should come out of. And on the RAISE grant is awaiting a contract signature. It's to be sent to the city for signature, and also Giddings Road, the traffic count for Giddings Road has been completed, and also the design work has been done, and one grant proposal has been submitted for the Giddings Road redevelopment. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. The final subcommittee is Public Safety, Health, and Wellness. That is chaired by Pro Tem Carrington, who has departed. So we will now go to communications. The next city council meeting is a week from tonight, the Tuesday, September 24th, city council meeting in the same time and location. Bless you. Pontiac Senior Chore Program applications will be available starting yesterday, and applications will be accepted through September 30th. That is per the city's social media and website postings. I don't have further information beyond that. If the mayor or deputy mayor want to expound upon that in their closing comments, they're welcome to. We want to make sure people knew about that opportunity for the Pontiac Senior Chore Program. Eastern Market Farmers Market Pop-Up happening every Thursday in downtown at the McLaren Hospital main entrance from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's a town hall meeting on this Thursday evening, September 19th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Pontiac High School regarding housing needs and master plan feedback for our city. So please join. You can learn more at visionpontiac.com. Pontiac High hosts Avondale High School for their varsity football game this Friday night, 7 p.m. at Pontiac High's football field. Fleece and Thank You has a community service event. They're making 1,000 blankets for children in hospitals this Saturday, September 21st, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the UWM Sports Complex on South Boulevard. Yaktown Dope Backdown has a pop-up shop on Saturday, September 21st, 1 to 4 p.m. there at 18 East Lawrence Street. The Pontiac Central High School Class of 1976 fundraiser party is on Saturday the 21st, 7 p.m. to midnight, held at Alley Cat Cafe in downtown Pontiac. New Springfield Missionary Baptist Church has their Family and Friends Day this Sunday, September 22nd, 11 a.m., located at 124 Prospect Street. And with that, we're at closing comments, mayor's communication, and then he could segue from there into his closing comments.
Thank you. Just two quick communications, one being that my State of the City address is occurring this coming Monday, September 23rd at the Strand Theater downtown. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the program starts at 6:30. It's free of charge. Please come on out. You need to register in advance so we have an accurate count of folks, but we look forward to seeing you this coming Monday, September 23rd. Secondly, I wanted to give a little additional detail around the Pontiac Senior Chore Program. I want to first credit our grants director, Lisa Campbell, who was able to secure some additional funds for the Senior Chore Program from OLSA beyond the initial tranche. And if that hasn't already come before council for approval, that amendment to the agreement, it soon will be. But that will help this program go a bit further and serve more seniors. But in order to apply, you can call 248-758-3040, and you can hit option number 4 to talk with Delia Cork in our grants department. She's our grants coordinator specifically. You can also go to a link, which is https://tinyurl.com/chore app. Or you can go to the city's website, which is probably a little more convenient, and it will be prominently listed so that you can apply conveniently online, or again by calling 248-758-3040, option number 4, and talk to our grants coordinator, Delia Cork.
Further, any closing comments, Mayor Gremmel?
I don't have any in the interest of time.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Stevens.
Just to reiterate what you have already said, Council President, that this Thursday, everyone is invited to come out to Pontiac High to participate in the master planning process. I promise you, if you participate, you will be very happy with the end result of seeing your input ultimately shape the future of the city.
Thank you. Clerk Doyle? Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by confirming that District 2's meeting this month will meet on September 30th. I was initially under the impression that we would be meeting on the 23rd, as that is the fourth Monday. However, due to the mayor's State of the Address, that meeting will be held on September 30th at 7 p.m. at Goldner Walsh. In addition to that, District 2's community event project is still underway. It's going to be called the Winter Wheels Workshop, where you will be able to come and get your car prepared for the winter with a complimentary oil change, handouts provided by me, and we'll give an update on other services that will be available after I speak with the auto shop mechanic. In addition to that, one final comment. Perhaps, as we've heard tonight, there's a lot of misalignment in the checks and balances system regarding the council and the administration. Perhaps this new position that is pending to be filled, the executive assistant, could bridge the gap in those communication barriers and help our processes flow a little more smoothly. Just wanted to give my 2 cents on that possibility.
Thank you. District 3, Councilman Goodman.
Good evening, everyone. I can actually keep this very short. As per usual, the District 3 community meeting is the last Monday of the month, which this month is the 30th. So please make sure that you come out. We will be having the Gary Bernstein Health Clinic come out to talk about what resources they provide to the community, which they work for everyone, especially if you do not have insurance. And funny enough, related to what Councilwoman Jones said, the 4th Pullover Prevention Clinic for the city of Pontiac will be happening October 6th at the Baldwin Center from 1 to 5. So same bat time, same bat place, same bat channel as it's been the past 3 times. Well, now the third time it's been there. So we will be doing what we did last time, making sure that we are stopping pretextual stops and interaction with law enforcement as much as possible by fixing people's headlights and taillights. But beyond that, as we've done every other time, we've done other things. Over the summer, we were doing AC recharges. Now that we're moving into the fall, it's not as important, but we will be checking heat along with a secret mouse tool thing that we'll be doing that's different this time than the past few times, checking air pressure, doing oil changes, checking fluids, and also, again, being referred for, repairs that you might possibly need to the mechanic that has been supporting us now for the 3rd time, being Chavez Auto. So thank you to Tony for helping us do this a 3rd time. So we will also have, again, for the 3rd time, have Uncle Jerry's Barbecue providing food. So we got food for, I believe, it is 400 people, the same amount as last time. So make sure that you come out and actually take part of it. We will have resources inside the Baldwin Center again. I believe last time we had 15 different tables. We had produce bags from Micah 6. We had the food from Uncle Jerry's, along with, I believe last time, Tony sent 7 mechanics. So through the course of that day, we were able to feed 450 people because we made that food stretch, and we also fixed about 250 cars. So I would encourage everyone to take advantage of that, again, as we're going into the winter, because car repairs are very important in making sure that you are safe when the weather is getting wet and slick. So please come out to the next Pullover Prevention Clinic, which is October 6th from 1 to 5 at the Baldwin Center, which is 212 Baldwin Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. 2, 3, now 4. Councilwoman James.
Yes, just one announcement. Our regular district council meeting was canceled for this month because I'm going to be out of town, but I am asking all of our District 4 residents to please attend the planning meeting for the master plan that's going to take place at Pontiac High on September 19th. I plan to attend, so I am inviting all of District 4 residents to please come out and take part in the future of our city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. District 5, Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. I just want to thank everyone who attended our District 5 meeting on Thursday. We had a good discussion, and I thank each and every one of you who came out. I also want to just mention, although it's not a District 5 issue, that the city, that the Oakland County Ministerial Fellowship in conjunction with District 3 will be doing a community event on September 28th from 1 to 4 at the Grace and Peace Church, which is on Kennett. Further information will be forthcoming. And with that, I say everyone have a great evening.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to the City Council for your service to the people of Pontiac. Very briefly, 2 District 7 items to emphasize. One, to thank the council for, in the consent agenda, your favorable vote for the honorary renaming of Seward Street in District 7. Kayreen Green was a longtime advocate, activist, and pillar of the community on the east side. You might not have even known her by name, but she would attend almost every funeral in the city of Pontiac and provide comfort and support. So for decades, she has touched many, many Pontiac families. And for her to have passed during the pandemic, and many people didn't even know that she had departed, this is a way spiritually for the city to repay the honor as well and venerate her. When I first started attending District 7 meetings, she was there faithfully. And it's not the same without her, but we know that Pontiac is stronger and better for her. So when I brought this up and asked what the residents thought, it was really resounding, and they were angry with me that I even dared ask. But I said, no, I wanted to get your feedback, so that way I can share with the council and the community about how enthusiastic you were about that decision. So I want to thank the council for making that possible. And secondly, I just want to I've raised it with the mayor and deputy mayor in between meetings as well, but I want to make sure that at least the city's doing everything we need to on the Purdue redevelopment front. That's a major project on the east side, and where many months at many of the District 7 meetings, we bring sort of the updates, and so I want to make sure in between those meetings I'm amplifying that we are at least doing our part, so that way if there are any final actions or decisions or submittals that the city needs to do, that we're covering our bases. The community, as you may know, we have modified our city council meeting agenda, or excuse me, meeting schedule. So there is no meeting that 1st of October. That first Tuesday in October, there is no council meeting. So I don't want, if there's something about to pop off when it comes to retirees or Purdue or anything like that, that we're landing that right, so that way it works with the schedule. So I just want to really emphasize that point as well on behalf of District 7 residents. Okay. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support. It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Parker, that we adjourn this evening's meeting. P.S. The funky light is because residents keep saying how dark it is when the light with the shade messed up, so I'm trying to counterbalance that. Hopefully that can be fixed for everyone's viewing ease to watch the council meetings. But I think it's time for roll call on adjournment. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
5 yeas.
That motion carries. We stand adjourned at 9:10 p.m. Please have a safe night.